Pikachu! What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy, number 121 since we started documenting these. And Alan, I see you're ready for tomorrow.
I am. It is Pokemon Go Fest weekend firing up. So I'm about to spend 16 hours wandering through South Carolina heat with a 9-year-old, catching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Pokemon. It'll be fun as long as we don't get dehydrated.
Enjoy it, man, because those days are fleeting. I used to take my kid around too, and now he's 6 foot tall and looks like a young man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Oh yeah. A year or two from now, he won't be interested in catching Pokemon or doing anything with Dad. So so we'll joke about it, but I'll have fun, and I'm glad to go spend time with him and the missus, and we will catch them all.
Or die trying.
Or dehydrate ourselves trying, and just be laid out flat on 120-degree pavement somewhere in the middle of the Carolinas.
Craziness. I hope y'all in the US are surviving the heat, and some of you in Europe as well. Cheers, everybody. Good to see you. 42 people already in. Larry, John, Aaron, Dwayne, Anthony,
yep,
Luca,
Jack, Tim, Frosty,
Wilson.
Luca. Good. Luca, I know, was excited about this one. Glad you could make it to join us live for at least a while. Let's see, Mike's there too.
Oh,
Mike.
Did we break you? Did we convert you into a night owl, Mike? It's a good thing here.
Yeah, he's got the heavy metallurgy jet lag from last week still kicking in.
We broke him.
So, Andre, good to see you. Good to see you. Alex, hey. Lots of folks showing up. I think a lot of folks are excited to cover this year. The chat's already been pretty positive leading up to showtime. I think a lot of people have a lot of good memories about 1990 in heavy metal terms, and we'll get into that in just a minute.
Speaking of, we have a gentleman that is returning, friend of the show, awesome guy. He hasn't been around since he stated in the dugout since February. So it's good to have Darcy, 6 Strings 9 Lives, back, returning to the show. Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you.
Our friend from Canada, our friend from the north, eh? Take off, you hoser.
Take off, eh? Yeah. No, I can't even believe it's been that long. I mean, and I get, I tune in every week, see you guys, tune in as much as I can. And you know what? And Alan was touching on the comment section, positive things like that. You guys have a killer comment section and a great following. My little intro here today, I just want to, you guys do such an awesome job. I don't think people realize what goes into this sometimes. And, some of these are, pretty short notice, topics that you got to kind of crash course. And you got to kind of pack it all in a day or so and get things ready. But you guys do such a great job. And Alan, I absolutely enjoyed your last 2 videos. All your videos. You really make me look forward to Tuesday mornings. I am a very early riser, and I think my time, which I'm 2 hours behind you guys, is I think your videos come out at 9 a.m. your time and 7 a.m. my time?
Something like that, or 7, 8 my time and 6 your time. I'm drinking
my coffee, ready to go. Awesome videos. And I had told Marty in the green room, I zipped down to my North Dakota post office box and picked this up yesterday. Thank you, brother. And absolutely awesome. And this is on my list to do a review. So if those of you in the chat or friends of the show have not listened to the new Glorious Dead album, Cemetery Paths, you better go out and get this before it's gone. It's absolutely awesome.
This is a paid ad, by the way.
Yeah, I'll give you my PayPal thing later, but
the Canadian dollar doesn't hold up so well, so Darcy's willing to work cheap as long as we pay in U.S. Currency.
I'm not just saying that. I absolutely love the album, and we'll talk about it in our little review. And I wasn't the biggest death metal guy, so even on today's show, you know what? I have very little death metal to show, but I got a couple of good ones. If you guys don't pick them first or whatever, but hey, this is an excellent album. I'll tell you.
Did I send you a shirt too?
No, I picked up a shirt, but I got to pick up your new shirt.
I
No,
forgot to send you one. Sorry, but my bad.
Yeah.
I was
Be right
in a
back.
rush when I was packaging that up.
but I think we're on a bit of a tight schedule, so I will turn it back over to you, and you can. Oh, Alan's gone. See, he's gone already.
Yep. I think we should just start off by talking about 1990. What were you doing in 1990? And musically, I mean, I'm looking at this stack of music here, and yeah, I was fully invested. I know for sure, and I'm sure you were as well. What was happening in 1990 for you?
Well, I got a couple of years on you, so I was about 22 years old. Actually, at the time, I was working construction, which is the shittiest job you could ever have at the time. But you know what? We had a blast, and we were still buying our metal. There was quite a few that if I get to show them today, that didn't leave my vehicle. 90, maybe I would say in between, one in between relationships. Let's put it that way. I did not meet my future wife until 1992. And so it was a good time in my life, put it that way. Lots of beverages and spending money and listening to some metal. That's what was going on with me.
How about you, Alan?
1990 was kind of right in the middle of high school for me. So yeah, it right away kind of hits the nostalgia button because you remember stuff that you were learning to drive, hanging out with your friends. Even again, for us being out in the country, our access to a lot of metal stuff was limited. So you'd have, that's, once a month run to quote unquote the big city. That was, like an hour's drive away, where you could hit the record stores in the mall, pick up whatever money you had scrounged together for the past few weeks, maybe get 2 cassette tapes, maybe 3 if you if them. Maybe if you got like 3 for the $7.99 bin, you might squeeze out a third one. So yeah, that was very much 1990 for me, kind of right there in the formative high school, teenage years. So pretty good memories of it all overall. And looking through these albums from that year, definitely sentimental attachments to some things. What about you, Marty?
I do have to say, Dwayne makes a good point here. 1990, I mean, I don't know. CDs were kind of still young in the mix, and I was very much a tape guy growing up. I went from 8-tracks to vinyl, then to tapes, and then to CDs. I was replacing a lot of tapes with CDs, and if I didn't have the money, I'd buy the tape. If I had the money, I'd buy the CD, and there was a big price difference. I mean, Camelot, the CDs weren't cheap. They didn't give them away. They were not cheap. But for me, it was a year after I graduated high school. I had my first job outside of my family's business. My parents owned a party/convenience store, which basically sells liquor and beer and pizzas and subs and, a few common groceries and stuff to people of a small town. I got my first job working at Kmart, so I was feeling a little bit more independent. And just every ounce of, I didn't really have to pay rent. I just helped out here and there around the house and whatnot. And I had a little bit more disposable income, and my 1 or 2 cassettes a week started exploding into more and more music to pile up in my then childhood bedroom. But yeah, and it's funny looking at this stack here. The extreme worlds are starting to collide. Thrash is still hanging on and doing great. I mean, Thrash is putting out some really killer stuff, as I'm going to show. I'm sure all of us are going to show a bit of it here tonight. But death metal is really starting to take off, and there's some very influential records that come out in 1990. But exactly, I was K-Marty. It was always funny. I went from Farty Marty in high school to K Marty. It's the hits keep on coming. But yeah. So that's it. It was a big year. Was starting to become a little more independent, and I have to worry about school anymore. I was never a big fan of it. I did what I had to do in school, but I was glad when it was done. And from there on, it was just put your head down and work, one foot in front of the other, and music was still very much a part of that evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I mean, I think we've all already kind of touched on something that we'll see as a theme tonight. With 1990, all your active genres of metal were doing fairly good.
No.
We weren't to the point where anything was kind of, completely burned out and tired, or where one was completely, overwhelming all the others and the others were still kind of struggling for attention. Looking through all the album lists and stuff this week as we put this together, it's a year that feels like, in a way, some of the different metal styles were relatively balanced. That, whatever type or types of metal you were into, there were some very good releases that came out in 1990 for you. So and it's funny because it would also change pretty quickly after this. And some folks, Metal Neanderthal already kind of hinted at this in the comments earlier. In 1991, you have the Black Album comes out, Nevermind comes out, and 10 comes out. And all of a sudden, by the end of 1991, a lot of heavy metal is already kind of starting to get pushed a little bit out of the mainstream and out of the spotlight. And all of a sudden it's like, well, you got to sound, like, Metallica's writing stuff, for, cheerleaders and, jocks to listen to on top 40 radio. And everybody's wearing flannel and being all sad and serious about things. And it's kind of like, the party's over in a way by that time, just a year after this. But in 1990, none of that has happened just yet. And so, you still have, a pretty active metal scene and a relatively, diverse one. As we'll see, some genres are maybe past their prime a little bit, but I think you can still find some, pretty big releases from almost anything.
I have to say something about the whole grunge thing. Everybody talks about how grunge killed metal. I mean, all grunge really did was kind of crush the glam side of things. I think
that was the one that took the biggest hit. Yeah,
because really, if you look at grunge, I mean, look at Soundgarden. I mean, I saw Soundgarden open for Voivod, and it's Soundgarden's core. It's Black Sabbath. It's heavy. I mean, there's some elements of metal in that stuff. You listen to Nirvana. Mm-hmm. One of their favorite bands that they would listen to on tour would be in this little shitty van driving around, was Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales.
Mm-hmm.
These are bands that are being thrown at us at the culture as it's like a new alternative form of commercial music. But if you look, a lot of these bands, a lot of the bigger bands, there's some metal in there. There's some metal in that DNA. And I never, of course, I wasn't in the music scene then. I never really saw it as a threat. I just don't get it. The underground has always been the underground. Heavy music has always survived. Metal has always survived. The people that really took it on the chin was the hair bands, the Bon Jovis, the Rats, the Poisons. They were replaced because whenever it was metal, a metal show, 3/4 of the metal show was Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Poisons, crap they've been playing all day.
Yep.
Anyway, so as a headbanger growing up, the headbangers ball was 3/4 of the crap they've been playing anyway all day. Glam, to see those bands go, I was fine with it. I like Nirvana, some Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. I like Soundgarden. I like the heavy bands like Tad. Good heavy stuff. It's just a different approach to metal. I don't want to call it straight up metal because it's not, but there's definitely metal in grunge's DNA. And
you definitely make a good point, because how many hair band, hard rock bands like that, glam bands, can you think of that actually survived, that came out of that? There's big gaps in careers. You got your Def Leppards and stuff that kind of, but even the shit that they were putting out then was shit. It wasn't great. I mean, over in Europe, metal was still fairly strong, but things were changing there too. I mean, you had, maybe not in 90, but after 90, 91 to 93, even everyone had these experimental albums and things were. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think grunge crushed all the metal that people kind of make it out to be.
The true metal, I don't think it did. It put it where it needed to be, and that was slightly underground. And the people that were in the know stayed in the know. If anything, there was a few bands they ended up liking on top of it. And from my perspective, I hated the hair stuff. Now, Yeah, I had a few. I had Cinderella tapes. I like Rat. I mean, there's a handful of bands that I liked from that era, and I still own some of those. But
Yeah,
to see the lot of that go away, the Warrants, the Wingers. I know you're a fan of that Winger and all that other stuff, Darcy. But there were some bands I was glad to see not have to turn on and see them on TV anymore. It was fine. And I remember coming home from band practice one day and turning on and seeing the new video, Smells Like Teen Spirit. I'd never heard of Nirvana before. I'm just like, wow, what a great song. I came away, I'm like, wow, this is going to do something. This is huge. This song is so catchy. It's heavy. It doesn't sound like anybody else. It's great. And sure enough, I mean, what a firestorm that was.
Yeah. And it's funny because heavy metal fans kind of got turned on to Nirvana much earlier than the masses did, where it exploded in popularity. That had been on Headbangers Ball for months before it was getting played all day every day. Because they didn't quite know what to do with it, and so they marketed it towards heavy metal fans. And some of us were like, "Yeah, okay, that's not bad. That's kind of cool."
Yeah. And a guy like me, and I know you as well, Alan. I've got a place in my heart for punk. I mean, I like some punk. As well, punk and hardcore, and Nirvana's got they got a little bit of that new wave in there. There's a little bit of punk, there's a little bit of metal, there's a little bit of everything. And to not see Pour Some Sugar on Me anymore on MTV was definitely
I'm good.
A thank you Nirvana type moment. But I mean, I've got all the Nirvana stuff. I never saw a problem with it. It's the way it is. And Melvins, I mean, look at that early Melvins. It's like Doom, heavy sludgy Doom. I mean, early Melvins is great, and even some later Melvins is great. They're just a great band. Heavy as hell.
John just mentioned Melvins in the chat, but it's funny. This actually, this very thing was kind of a side tangent on. It may have been today's Sea of Tranquility stream, where Martin Popoff was making kind of the same thing, that grunge could almost. Maybe if you wanted to, you could make a case for trying to turn it into like its own little subgenre within heavy metal. Because
I wish I would have saw that. I wish I could say I was copying him, but I mean, great minds think alike, I guess. But no, it's right on.
Yeah, and I agree too. It was really glam is what took the hit from grunge. I guess there may have been some of the bigger metal bands that took a little collateral damage. At least the ones that were on major labels. Because those labels then were turning their attention to the new hot thing and probably not paying as much attention to the overkills and testaments on their roster. Probably did struggle for some attention at that point. But for the bands that were not at that major label tier in heavy metal circles, I don't think it impacted them as much. Simply because the target audience was different. The people that grunge was really being channeled towards. They weren't the ones who were going to go out and, be buying Deicide albums anyway. They were the ones who were going to go out and buy Guns N' Roses and Poison albums until, the record label said, hey, look over here instead. So, I don't think like you said, Mar, I don't think the underground metal stuff lost as much of a fan base as is sometimes made out to be. But I am sure the bands that were on big labels and then within a couple of years weren't on big labels, I'm sure they feel that grunge was kind of stealing their places on those label rosters.
People are saying, Aaron is the metal theologian mentioned in the comments that bands like he thinks that bands like Pantera did more harm to metal than I don't disagree with that. Bands like White Zombie, I do like some White Zombie stuff, but when it turned into Rob Zombie, you got Typo Negative, which were always what they are, and you got Danzig that were big in the 90s, and Pantera. I mean, Pantera and Rob Zombie, they were kind of caricatures of the commercial side of metal for me. Pantera was a heavy / glam band until they went on tour with Exhorter. They came out the other end sounding like Exhorter, more of an Exhorter, like, oh, maybe we need to toughen up a bit. And I never got Pantera. It just seemed like knuckle dragging stuff for me. I get people like it. Great. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying they were never, that I don't see why they were always such a humongous deal, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, we could go on about this forever.
Good to see you there, Ruthless.
Hey, Ruthless. What's up? Rick, good to see you. A lot of folks in the chat. Cheers, everybody. It's great to see you as ever. We really appreciate all you joining us every week. You know what? I do like some of that stuff too, Dwayne. you got the pitch shifters coming up in the world. You've got, I can't, my drawn a blank already, but Mike, you're still peeing. You're gonna hate yourself tomorrow, brother. Let's get into this. Darcy, we have a bunch of crap to talk about, and why don't you start us off?
I'm gonna lead us off. I'm gonna bring in the heavy artillery right off the bat.
That's a good album. I was gonna pick that, but I was a little late to that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually told Mike that I was gonna show this one first.
It's a good album.
I wish I could say I knew about this in 1990. I wish I could say that, because I'll tell you what would have happened if I would have known about this in 1990. It very well could have been top 3 of 1990 for me. Easily. There's a couple other ones that I like just as much or a little bit more. But as I've said a million times, this is an absolute thrasher piece. I'm glad I own it. I'm going to tell you, this is the only artillery album that I really need.
Fear Tomorrow and Terror Squad are good too.
I've heard they're good, and I will give them a chance. But anything probably after this, because there was a big hiatus after this too. They went away for a long time. Produced by Flemming Rasmussen, so you know that name very well.
Metallica.
Yeah, but this, you know what? Even I was listening to this a couple of times, like actually 2 days ago. Even the cover of Razamanaz. You know what? I thought if Nazareth ever needed a replacement singer, this would be the guy, because it sounds phenomenal. But that is definitely not the highlight of the album. There's such killer tracks on here. My favorite is called Don't Believe, Unless It's Proven True. Absolute thrasher piece, this one. If somehow any of you thrash fans that this thing slipped through the cracks, get your pen and paper out. You need to pick this up. By Inheritance, obviously from 1990. Little bit of artwork by Kent Mateau. So you'll see that guy's name again if I get to show another one from that guy. But what do you guys think of this one? You have it? You heard it a bunch of times?
I've got the box set. It's got the this came out around 2008.
I've never seen that. What label's that on, Alan?
That's a good question. Let's find out. What label did put this thing out? Limited edition box from Metal Mind Productions.
Okay, Metal.
But yeah, it's got it shows on the back. It's got the 3 early albums, and then the first comeback album after the hiatus. So it's in one of those long ones. I think the book is kind of built into it, so it doesn't have a standalone booklet. Let's see. They're gold discs too, if I remember right.
That's a cool set.
It's very cool. This was something I saw, just came across. Yeah, the book is kind of built into it. It came out spring of whatever year it was, and I was like, that is really cool. And I ended up getting just a little bit of tax money back that year, and actually used it to order a copy of this because I liked some of the band's music, but I only had one of the albums. I'm like, seems like a good way to get a bunch of them in one place. So yeah, cool set. But yeah, I agree with what you said, Darcy. This is I like the other 2 early artillery albums too, but this is the one. Yeah, this is the album that stands out above the others. And they're still around, but the material now is a much more. There's no thrash in it, or not.
It's more just really good. It feels like Metal Blade style metal, kind of.
It really does.
They're on Metal Blade actually, so it makes sense. But
yeah, it's kind of a pretty basic, almost simple power metal kind of formula they follow now, which they're not bad, but it's not super interesting to me either. But yeah, the early stuff is great, and this one has a lot of killer tracks on it. The title track is awesome. Bomb Food is kind of their version of Disposable Heroes, and they nail it on that one.
Life in Bondage, great song.
Yep. The second one, Co-Maniac, is terrific too. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Kind of started off with a little bit of an Eastern feel with that kind of, but actually, so both of these these 2 brothers are the guitar players, but one has passed away. And I don't know the band super. I think Morton has passed away, but they're continuing with, I think maybe they only have 2 original members now, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody in the comments,
sure.
but you definitely need this one. I'll tell you that much.
I wouldn't call it a thrasher piece, but I enjoyed it. I picked it up, I guess, in 91 or so is when I finally got around to buying the tape. I still have the original tape I bought from back then, and I always liked it, but the 90s I was starting to get more and more into death metal, so it didn't maybe dig its hooks in me as much as some other stuff that was coming out a little on the heavier side for sure.
But and the one thing I'll quickly say is with Fleming's production, what you mostly feel, you will sense a little bit of Ride the Lightning era Metallica in this album, more than, and a little bit of Puppets. So right in, let's say right in between. I wouldn't go as far as to say And Justice for All, but definitely right in there. You got those. I don't know. You just got that feel for sure. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's their brothers right there. But yeah, great album.
All right, good pick, good start, Alan.
Yep. First thing I do is get this Pikachu thing off my head because that's gonna,
save it for tomorrow when it's 1,000 degrees out and you're wearing that thing around.
Oh yeah, that'll be the perfect time. I Pika choose to wear this in the August heat in South Carolina. But yeah, let's make a pick. I always forget this album came out in 1990. It seems too early for this band to have been so good. But hey, they were. You've got Blind Guardian was already on album number 3.
Good
with
pick.
Tales from the Twilight World. Possibly their best. Now mine's got a 1991 copyright date on it. Let me make sure I haven't pulled the wrong thing off the shelf.
No.
But I think mine's just a different pressing.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's 90.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't know why this one says 91. I always feel like this album must have come out more like around 92, 93, that the band would have needed more time to build up to this. But no, they were already on album 3. They came out really fast. I mean, they'd done 88, 89, and 90. So yeah, they wouldn't skip a year until 1991. But this is, at times I'll cite this as my favorite Blind Guardian album. Sometimes Imaginations from the Other Side will just edge it out. This is my favorite of the earlier ones where they're more focused on the speed metal sound. Just a great track list. You've got the big opening track, Traveler in Time, one of my favorite Blind Guardian tunes. You've got also Welcome to Dying follows it up just perfectly. Then you've got they do kind of their first little more like acoustic-y thing with Lord of the Rings, and it works really well. Goodbye My Friend is just classic chant along in the halls of Valhalla kind of Blind Guardian stuff. Lost in the Twilight Hall. It gets a little weird at the end with Tommy Knockers and the Altair 4, but then it wraps up with the last is just another absolute barn burner. So
yeah,
one of the best German speed metal albums, and a classic. The band, of course, had no attention at all in the States in 1990. I didn't get into the band until several years later, but
I'm late. I'm a little later to them because of that.
But fantastic album by a fantastic band. So I will start right there with some classic German power speed.
Yeah.
Great one.
Lost in the Twilight Hall, definitely my favorite track on that album.
There's so many good ones on that album. I'm hard to pick. I usually will pick Traveler in Time. I just love the big chant, where it's all based, the morning sun of Dune, and they're going through, all the, Kwisatz Haderach kind of stuff, from the novel.
Yeah, and you're right about Tommy Knockers. Tommy Knockers. Yeah, it's a little wacky, but one thing that jumps out from that band to me is Hansi's voice. He's a very unique vocalist.
Oh yeah,
I think his voice is outstanding.
Yep,
and that's one of the highlights that really turned me on to Blind Guardian. I actually still don't own their first. I don't own their first album.
The first one I think is very good. I've always liked that one quite a bit more than most folks.
Need to pick that up for sure.
Yep, I think it's a really solid one too. But Tommy Knockers is the one song. It feels like maybe it's like the one track that was left over from an earlier album that never got released. It feels a little bit more like something from the second album. I don't know. Yeah. It's not a bad track. It just feels slightly out of place. But it's certainly not terrible. It doesn't ruin the album or anything. All right,
All right.
Marty, I believe it's your time to kick things off with your first pick.
We're going to start off. I'm still very much in the metal thrash realm at this point, although death metal's starting to creep in, but this is the 5th album by King Diamond, The Eye. This thing is what an amazing run of albums, really. I mean, this one here was the first time there's a drum machine. I know Snowy Shaw is listed as the drums, but it's not. If you listen to it, you can tell it's a drum machine. And I think I read somewhere King used it just for studio purposes. But this is the last really great King Diamond record for me. I do like what comes after some here and there. But it just, as soon as he moved to America, things changed for me with King Diamond. The sound started to get a lot more digital. And he was also running with Merciful Fate at the time too. So he was double dipping his creativity, and it started to show after this record. The decline really started to happen a bit, but this is cool. It's a cool story. Talking about, the Inquisition. Burn has always been a favorite song of mine on here. And back in this time, whenever I would start listening to King Diamond, I would go through everything. I would listen to every King Diamond, every Merciful Fate record. Of course, at this point in their career, there wasn't as many on both sides, but that marathon ended up being a little more time consuming as the years went on. But this album was the last truly great King Diamond record for me. I still like what he's doing, and a few of the samples I've heard here and there coming out new sounds like he's kind of got it back together. So we'll see, but this was still very much a part of my wheelhouse during the 1990s. Still loved King. I think I like Conspiracy and them a little bit better than this album, but this one, my initial disappointment went away as I spent more time with this record. It's just a good, solid record. Interesting.
Marty, I don't know if it's true, but I don't know where I read it or I heard it, that Snowy actually played these electronic pad things.
He might have. I thought I read somewhere that he,
but it's still got that, it's got that Judas Priest ram it down program sound, that dig, 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 that really, way too precise. There's no warmth to it. It's just very precise, but I love that album. And but if people out there have never heard The Spider's Lullaby, the first half of that album,
it's great. It's a good record.
Killer.
Yeah,
love it. But anyways, great pick, Marty.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And you're up, Darcy. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, you're right. I think you're right too, Marty. It does, though, feel like it's kind of the end of an era with King Diamond. That after that,
the end of a great run.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, and we've been waiting how many years for a new album? Like, come on, King, let's get I think we're going to see a new Merciful Fate album before we see a new King Diamond album. So,
the funny thing is, I just can't believe how many people seem to like Give Me Your Soul, Please. And I bought that record, and man, I did not like it. He just was so, and even Puppet Master, I mean, that one kind of grew on me a bit, but our buddy S. Craig Zoller, he loves that record. I'm like,
I do too. I'm with Craig. That is a great album, The Puppet Master.
It's good, but I don't know. It's just too digital, I don't know.
I'll agree with you. It's not the first 5. I'll tell you that.
No,
much.
yeah.
But
people in the chat are kind of back and forth on Puppet Master. It's not one I've played many times. My short take on it was really good music, really lame story.
The story it bugged me.
Yeah,
the lyrics,
the story. Yeah, it just that knocked it way down for me. Fair or unfair, but yeah, just the lame-o story just. But musically, I mean, what's going on behind the story. Yeah, really good performances.
Well, Ryan better pick up The Eye because it's still worth.
It's good. Some good stuff on it.
I mean, maybe a few people know in the chats that I'm from Canada, and now that I said that, you know what I'm going to hold up, I'm sure. But Annihilator, Neverland.
There's a couple you could have held up, actually.
Yeah, there's a couple more yet. Actually, there's one really, really good one too. But yeah, I've been an Annihilator fan my whole life, and I am one of those guys who pretty much will buy. Oh, there's no 90 Helix album, but
Are you sure about that?
oh yeah, no, actually there is it, but it isn't that good, so I'm not going to hold it up. Yeah, I actually pulled that. So I am a fan of pretty much everything from Annihilator, but it always stops at this album. It seems there is other better albums, but this still to this day is my favorite Annihilator album. Even Craft Dinner, the cheesiest. Oh, that was a bad pun.
Literally, this song's
cheesiest
supposed to be
lyrics
cheesy.
ever, but, I mean, the guitar riffs on there are just awesome. I was trying to think, is Annihilator really thrash? Yes, they are.
Their first album is,
but there's so much more going on. There's so many guitar little idiosyncrasies going through these albums. But the Fun Palace, great song, 6s and 7s, and one of my favorite tracks, kind of what if you want to call it a deep track, I Am in Command, the one that ends the album. But Jeff Waters, this is pretty much just like Megadeth is the Dave Mustaine show. This Jeff Waters is the Annihilator is the Jeff Waters show, and
sure.
There is coming up through Ear Music. They're going to re-release a lot of their albums. So there, if you tune into my channel, I'll definitely be showing you a couple that are really good, but not quite this good. So there's my second pick: Annihilator, Never Neverland.
Right on.
It's a very fun album. I played it to death back in the day. I don't go back to it very often anymore, but yeah, it got tons of spins back then.
All right, Alan.
Okay, I'm going to go off the big hits for at least a moment and dive out into the weeds. So, 1990, a certain Swedish release, would completely, reshape the underground. But we'll talk about Entombed later. What I want to talk about is Detest.
I've never even heard of that or seen that.
I don't know them.
There's a good reason. This is an underground one for sure. This was only an EP release. It's the only thing the band did. It was a very, very small pressing. This became one of those, nobody has it kind of mysterious grail kind of things that people, hunted for years just to see if it even existed or not. The cover, fantastic. You got this weird, creepy little devil dude sitting here at the top of a big, stone set of stairs. It's like, what's that dude doing? What's he hanging out? What's he waiting for? Is he like, waiting to ambush somebody? Is he just like chilling? Don't know. So yeah, this is a total underground, total cult release. The thing that's kind of neat with the EP, and I think why folks that are aware of it like it, every song on it is slightly different. There's one song that's, a bit more thrashy. It's like, okay, maybe this is kind of a Swedish thrash thing. Then you get to the next track. It's like, no, wait, this song isn't thrashy at all. This is more of like, a power metal song. And then the next one, well, wait, that's not power metal or thrash. It's the band, kind of almost intentionally seemed to avoid picking a style, but they sounded pretty good on all of them. You've got, the opener, Thundersteel, is this huge, epic Man-O-War kind of thing. But then it goes, into just all these different directions, across, this one, just unknown EP. What I've got here is a anthology that was put together years later by Stormspell Records. So it's got the EP, but it's got, just tons of demos that the band had recorded over the years, but those never had any official release until this. And there is a more recent anthology also. I don't know if it's the exact same track listing. I haven't compared the two different anthologies. Maybe they dredged up some other unreleased stuff for the more recent one. But yeah, I just thought for the real underground, hardcore folks watching out there, we're going to name a lot of classic albums tonight that are great, that everyone can relate to. If you want to just go dig in the dustiest corners of the underground, that's where Detest lives. That's where this little dude is hanging out, waiting for you to come check out their music. It's a fun, if very strange and very varied EP. And but yeah, with the anthology, you don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars and years of your life looking for the original vinyl. You can just probably go get this off Discogs for, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks. A fun one to check out if you come across it.
Good old Storm Spell. What a cool label. Seriously.
Yep.
Are they putting out all the best music ever? No, but they're putting out a lot of really good quality stuff. It's good.
Yeah. And yeah, he's, Ian's pretty good at digging up some of these, very hyper obscure things and getting them at least, a good solid CD pressing.
He would actually be kind of cool to have on the show at some point. Do you know him? No. Could you reach out to him? Maybe we could talk about something.
I could. It's been a long time since I've chatted with him, and I know at least he used to travel quite a bit, so he could be a little hard to pin down. But yeah, we could definitely reach out. We could reach out. It can be done. I know a guy. Yes, I'll get back to some bigger, more well-known releases. But
you just blew my mind. I've never seen that or heard of that. That's incredible.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
there's some people.
I know we've got some folks in Europe watching who may want to tune out early, so wanted to give them like one nice deep cut here early in the show.
Yep. At that point in my metal career, I wasn't into deep cuts. I was just still navigating what was available at Camelot Music. All right. I hate to do this. This is kind of a twofer. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to show two here at once because they went on tour together. And I was at the show and it blew my little mind away. But we've got first off the second album by Forbidden, Twisted into Form.
Mm-hmm.
What an amazingly great record this is. And absolutely, I mean, this is a thrasher piece. Yeah. But it isn't just thrash. It's got the power metal, Russ has got his voice is like butter. If to quote Babs there, but you've got really good thrash with a very melodious screamer / crooner. What an amazing evolution from Forbidden Evil, the debut, which is a great thrash record. Here it's just the songs are a lot more sophisticated. Both albums are great. This one I think I prefer a little bit more, but they went on tour with another band that I was very much a fan of at the time, and that was Death Angel with Act 3. I hate to double dip because I'm sure Darcy probably had both of these to show, but yeah, they're starting to get a little funkier here. But this has still got some really good songs on it. And when these two went on tour together, they went on tour with Realm from Milwaukee. Is that where they were from? Endless War was out at that point. I probably should have grabbed that. I saw them in Flint and it was an amazing show. Not very many people there. It wasn't a hugely well attended show, but for a guy in Traverse City who was just starting to go to shows during this time, this was probably like my third or fourth show I ever went to. It was a big deal. It was a really big deal. And wow, all three bands put on an amazing show. I love both these records. I could live without the funk on Act 3, but it's still, Mark's vocals are very melodious. I mean, this is kind of a perfect tour. You've got two Bay Area thrash bands that are putting out some great music and they have very melodious singers. I think Forbidden crushes Death Angel, to be completely honest, but
yeah,
I like both of these records and I listened to them a lot back in 1990 for sure.
Yeah, I love both those albums too.
Sorry to double dip on that, boys.
That Artillery album, that's the same artist as this guy, that Kent Mateau.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so that's the same guy. Anyways, that's my favorite Forbidden album too.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when I first heard Step by Step, I played it over and over and over and over. Love that album. Well, man, I am just in thrash mode, it seems, but I'm gonna go back to Canada. I'm already here, but I'm already back. So I'm gonna go with Sacrifice, Soldiers of Misfortune.
I saw them on that tour as well.
Yeah. So what is this? Their third?
Yep.
Third album. It's not Forward to Termination, but
no, it's not as great as their first two. It's like Metallica. This is
my second favorite Sacrifice album. I actually just recently I used to have this on cassette years ago, and this is a High Roller reissue, which High Roller does a killer job. And you were mentioning Storm Spell. High Roller's a little bit, bigger than Storm Spell, but they still bring these bands out of, I wouldn't say obscurity, but it's like, where are you going to get a Sacrifice reissue? Well, this one right here, great album. I guess if I was going to say, if you're new to Sacrifice, try Forward to Termination first, but this is a good pick too. So there is another Canadian pick of mine. So there it is, Soldiers of Misfortune.
Yeah, that's a fair description of it. I bought that CD for myself as a birthday present, but it was in '93. Didn't come across it until '93. Didn't know they had a third album out until I saw it. It's just like, okay, well, I guess that shall be my birthday present to myself this year.
And I forgot to say this to Marty too. 1990, I think it was like a year later I started grabbing some CDs, but you know what? I bought Number of the Beast in 1991, I would say. $26 for a CD in Canada. Ridiculous. So
yeah,
I forgot to throw that in there. So there you go.
I will say that Sacrifice on that, I went the first ever, I think it was my first show ever. First or second show, the Michigan Death Fest 1 in Jackson, Michigan. I went to that to see Sacrifice. I had not heard Deceased. Fatal played, who are killer Michigan death metal band. Deceased, Fatal, Nuclear Death. They say Deceased. Baphomet from New York. Sacrifice, who I went to see, and Morbid Angel were the headliner. And to be completely honest, Sacrifice was the least exciting band there. They played too long. In fact, they turned the power off on them because they wouldn't stop playing. And I had not heard Soldiers of Misfortune. I was a humongous fan of Torment and Fire and Forward Determination. And I'm just like, wow, this is kind of drawn out, kind of boring. Like they were a little too influenced by Metallica, maybe. It just wasn't as exciting as the two albums before it. I mean, I've since then gotten the tape and it's okay, but still,
Yep.
It was. I went there to see Sacrifice and I came away like, holy crap, Morbid Angel, Deceased, wow, Nuclear Death. Exciting times. Those were very exciting times for sure. Good pick though. Very cool. I knew that was going to be in your stack too. It had to be. It's part of your agreement with your government.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Alan.
All right. Jumping around some, even Doom had some decent albums coming out in 1990. It wasn't the most popular genre, by a long shot, but we'll see a few tonight that have held up well over time. And this one has always gotten pretty high accolades from a lot of folks. It's the Trouble self-titled, but the second self-titled Trouble album.
Yep.
Which why they did that, I will never forgive them.
Well, Halloween just did it. You have the self-titled EP, and then you got self-titled LP.
There's at least a format difference there, EP versus LP. So
and a million years in between.
And a ton of years in between. This is like 6 years after the debut, and there's only like 2 albums in between. So it's always been a little confusing. But regardless, for me, I thought this was a big step up for Trouble. We've covered Trouble before. The album before this is Run to the Light, which is probably my least favorite in there.
I love that record.
That record. That's one yeah, that's cool that you dig it. I don't get into that one. Even the Skull before that, the Skull's all right. But for me, really, it's like I like the debut. I can kind of do without the next 2 albums, and this one is quite good. I'm not as high on this as some other folks. Famously, both Sue Knowles and Jeff Wagner ranked this as the top album of the entire decade for the 1990s. When Metal Maniacs did their authors poll at the end of the decade, they both had this ranked at number 1, which kind of inflated its ranking in the overall tier thing, since it got so many points from both of them having it as their number 1, which they both stand by today. We've had them on the show before, and I asked them both, has your ranking changed any? They're like, both of them like, nope, it's still the best album that came out in the 1990s.
Cheers to you, Sue, if you're watching. Hope you're well.
Sue and Jeff both. Yep. It's been a lot of fun having them on in the past, and hopefully we'll have them on again in the future.
Oh, we will.
But regardless, it's a very solid album. And I think one reason it resonates well with people is it's just very straightforward. There's no pretension here. There's no gimmick or anything. Doom is a band that sometimes does lend itself to a little bit of theatrics and a little extra cheese. This is just pretty straightforward. It's these guys playing heavy music, good leads, good vocals, good songs. There's no, baggage that comes with this kind of band or this album.
No.
And so, yeah, again, even though this was, a Deaf American kind of thing, it didn't get quite as much attention as they probably hoped it would in 1990. Doom's always, been, kind of, the genre outside looking in a little bit. And there's some good stuff in 90, but it wasn't getting the same attention that, the thrash or death or even hair metal was still getting at that point. We may or may not get into some hair metal releases at some point this evening. But yep, definitely got to acknowledge that you do have, one of the big Doom albums from the whole decade came out right at the start of the decade with Trouble, self-titled.
Everybody get ready to drink when Alan shows a Danger record that came out in 1990.
89 and 91. So you're safe tonight.
We dodged a bullet.
You've beat the bullet. That's a danger deep cut reference right there. So those in the know are laughing hysterically right now, like me.
All right.
Take it away, Marty.
All right, we're still in the thrash. I was going to alternate on these, but I was still very much a thrash kid, and the death metal was still getting worked into my diet a little bit. But man, I love this record, and you don't really see many people talk about it. Anacrusis with Reason, their second album.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Nardi on vocals. We reviewed his latest album on the album review section of this channel. Go check it out. He sadly wasn't very happy with that review, but this album is it's exceptional. No one sounded like Anacrusis. Really awesome standard E tuning thrash with a guy that could sing, had a really melodious tone to his vocals, yet his screams, like I've said a million times, it sounds like somebody skinning a cat. It's just super high pitched screeching, and he's maintained it after all these years. He can still nail those screams like it's nothing for him. As a teenager that was going through, mood swings and whatnot, songs like Terrified, Stop Me, Wrong, there's a lot of lyrics on here that my angsty teenage self kind of identified with back in the day when I still cared about lyrics. So yeah, this is, from an emotional standpoint, the lyrics speak to me, and the music written around it is very atypical thrash with a lot of power and interest and dynamics. So very much a killer record for 1990 for me, and no one talks about it. If you've not heard Anacrusis Reason, go check it out. Killer stuff.
I've never seen that cover though. This is the one I have.
Yeah, this is the I don't know. This is a I bought this when it came out. This is a Metal Blade. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I picked this up. This is a recent reissue from, I don't know, probably 2019.
I also had this on tape, and it had the same cover as this. So they must have changed the cover later on. I don't know.
But man, that is one of those bands where you gotta dig past their first album, because I like all four of their albums.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the first one is much more straightforward than the later ones. It's still very good for
it's
what
thrashy
it is.
though. It's way more thrashy than these ones.
Yep. Yeah,
these
it's
are
more
thrashy, but I don't know. There's, and like you touched on, his screams are just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Suffering Hour is a great record as well, Wade. Check that out as well. Great. All four Anacrusis records are good. They really are. They got a little proggier as they went along.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, on their last album, the debut song on their Sound the Alarm. Wow, what an amazing song. What an amazing song. Anyway, Darcy.
Well, I'm in thrash mode too. I guess you and I we're not that far apart.
Well, we're all thrash kids here. I mean, we're all coming out of that era. I mean, that's what it was. It was thrash.
I mean, I got a couple of years on you. I was probably held back. I don't know. I can't remember my third year of grade 9, but anyways, here's another one. Exodus, Impact is Imminent.
That's where I got off the Exodus train. I did not like that record.
Well, you should have stayed on the train, because this is
I should listen to it again. I had the tape and I gave it away. I hated it.
A lot of people jumped off at in 92 on Force of Habit, but
Yeah.
so major label debut, Capitol Records. Is there any, I can't remember if there was any covers on this thing. No, but for me, I am a Gary Holt fan, but not so much a modern Gary Holt. This is one of the best guitar tones Gary Holt, just that, I don't know, it just jumped out at me. There is 2 songs on here that maybe you should go back and check out. Track called Only Death Decides, which is my favorite track, and another track called Changing of the Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, I really liked the H team with Holt and Hunholt, 2 great players. Nothing against Lee Altus, who's in the band now, but
Yeah,
you know what, this was great. And the next album, Force of Habit, was just the label being a bunch of assholes and saying, you got to do this, you're going to do this cover song and that cover song. I mean, that shit that they put on Force of Habit, like Pump It Up and all that, just garbage. But this one is in desperate need of a reissue. It's kind of hard to find, actually, even on CD these days.
Huh.
But yeah, go back and check this one out if you haven't. Marty, I'm going to find you a copy and mail it to you. So
not necessary, but cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one I've been back and forth on. When I first got it, it didn't really strike me quite the right way either, but I warmed up to it a little bit. And yeah, there are some good songs on it. Changing of the Guard's a really good one. That's the one that's about, the lyrics are about, is it one of like the Romanian dictators getting overthrown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so yeah, there's some cool stuff on that one. But you're right. After that, Force of Habit is cool.
Well, and they had their one, like they had their one goofy song on here, like the Lunatic Parade. That's kind of
that's the one that got played a lot. Yeah.
It's kind of similar to like Toxic Waltz,
mm-hmm.
That kind of vein. But yeah, little Exodus.
They really should have changed some titles around because, the album after that, Force of Habit, really is a fabulous disaster.
All right, Alan.
All right. Well, y'all are having fun in thrash, the thrash lane, so I'm not going to step on your toes by doing any thrash yet. So I'll do the other stuff. And a big one that I like a lot from 1990, and Marty, you mentioned this artist in passing a little bit earlier this evening. Danzig's second album comes out, Lucifuge, and he kind of goes from strength to strength. I like the self-titled quite a lot, but I think, this was, kind of an improvement in most departments. Everyone sounds great. This, of course, is, the kind of classic, lineup and era of, Danzig, the band. A lot of good songs on here. Danzig's voice, is almost maybe at the peak of his powers vocally. He sounds fantastic throughout. Just a good range of songs. You've got some that very southern drawly, some that are more bluesy, some that are just harder hitting, dark rock kind of songs. And that's kind of the thing. Danzig doesn't fit in a particular metal genre all that well. It's not doom, it's not thrash, it's not power, but it's definitely heavy metal of some type. Which in a way is kind of cool. This is the one, if I remember right.
Pikachu.
But this is the one I think, the booklet was designed to fold out as like an upside down cross. If we do the whole thing, haven't taken this out in ages, but yes, so you get the glamour shot of Glenn, and the whole booklet actually is an upside down cross kind of thing. It's like, okay, sure, whatever. I think the Satanic Panic was mostly over by 1990, so not sure what kind of points that was scoring. But regardless, liked the album. I always have. It's one that I don't go back to it quite as much because I think the third one, How the Gods Kill, is even better than this one. But still, you've got good stuff on here. Snakes of Christ. Killer Wolf is maybe slightly cheesy, but I can still deal with it. Tired of Being Alive is great. I'm the One is kind of simple, acoustic-y, but it just fits for Danzig. Her Black Wings got played a lot. What else? Blood and Tears is kind of the quieter, almost ballad, but in a weird way. Girls got the big power chord catchiness. Just a really solid album, start to finish. Can't complain about it. Danzig was going strong. and would continue for at least one more album. You can make the case for 2 albums after this before things got kind of weird and the lineup fell apart.
How big does your ego got to be to suggest to your art department for the label, say, I want to have my man boobs, my moobies on the cover with my nips, and my hairy moobies with my nips on there, and be completely okay with that? I just
He's
don't
comfortable in his own body, Marty.
Yeah.
This is a thing he should be applauding.
Oh, oh yeah. All right. Is it back to me again? All right.
It is back to you.
Okay. After this one, oh man, there's still, the thrash is just, it's okay. Swallowed in Black, Sadus. This was another huge album for me. The band never really got, they never really surpassed the amazing intensity of the Illusions Chemical Exposure debut. That is just a raw, aggressive from start to end, amazing album. This a little more refined, production's a little slicker. The songs are still frantic, cool, unique. Darren's vocals are scathing. It's just, I love the intensity of the debut. The debut is way better than this, but this is still in that pocket, and the band evolved a little bit. Of course, you got Steve DeGorgio on bass over here, one of the best bass players in metal. At this time, he was very much a part of the Antioch scene, which Autopsy, he played on the Severed Survival. He also played on the Fiend for Blood Autopsy EP. So that fretless bass work cutting through there, just such a nice touch to that death metal style. But this is a great record as well. Super intense thrash with a bit slicker production. I wish they would have kept that caustic feral sound on the debut, but good album. Darcy.
Okay, I'll take one little break out of the thrash for a while. This band, first heard of them on their awesome debut album. Again, just like even like Alan showed Trouble, unique vocalist. This band has a very unique vocalist. May he rest in peace. But Sanctuary, Into the Mirror Black.
Yes.
Worldane, one of a kind as far as I'm concerned. Awesome album. As much as I love Refuge Denied, I love this one just as much. I think this was a great follow-up. I've never heard their third album in full. I've never picked it up because there was such a massive gap. But
yeah,
I don't know. Just even like, I mean, you alluded to in the your little comment leading up to this show about Future Tense, and what a song that is.
Yeah.
I mean, just the guitar playing alone on this thing, and great musicianship. And when you have Worldane singing, because I haven't heard a ton of Nevermore albums, but the ones that I have heard, World never really quite captured exactly what he did on the 2 Sanctuary albums that I love. But yeah, there's my pick: Sanctuary, Into the Mirror Black.
Yep.
If you haven't picked this one up, it's it's not thrash. It is definitely in that US power metal vein with other great bands like Omen or things like that from the time. I don't even know if you'd put these guys in with like a Sabotage or something, but definitely a great album.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, and I knew you'd have that one too, but I'm sorry I stole your.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. No, I'm glad you picked it. It's a fantastic record. It's my favorite performance from Moral, easily. As much Refuge Denied is a good album, this is a fantastic album. Every song on here is,
and production. The production is way better.
The production's great. It's got, the whole album has Future Tense is a good opener because it really sets the tone. The whole album has this kind of dark moodiness about it that just permeates the album, in a very good way, not in a gothy way or a forced kind of way. Just a fantastic release, one of my favorites from the decade.
Yeah, I could probably say it might be my favorite Sanctuary album. only because I think Refuge Denied, which I love, but it suffered. It was right around the same time as So Far So Good, So What came out. And if you really listen to the drum sound on Refuge, it's very dull. It's very dull, but I mean, Worrell Dane, I don't know. I'm not going to say he carries the album, but some of those screams just unreal. But yep, there's my pick, Sanctuary.
He was obviously the focal point of the band, and in both bands he was in. I mean, very much a focal point. Amazing singer, very unique.
Yeah, and the first photo I saw of him, I'm like, holy shit! How long is that guy's hair? It's past his ass.
I'm a little envious now, not gonna lie. Anyway, Alan.
All right. Another one. I'm kind of just bouncing around different genres and styles. We'd seen this band start to kind of evolve in a different direction from their early stuff, but this was kind of where it became really fully realized that something different was happening, and it would set the tone for a lot of things really up to this day. I'm talking about Bathory and Hammerheart. We're miles and miles away from what he was doing on the early stuff. All the pentagrams and "Oh Satan, my Satan, I suck your dick, Satan" kind of stuff is ancient history by the time this comes out. And you get the sense right away. The cover sets a very different tone, using details from the Vikings funeral painting and such. And it's funny, a lot of bands, when they change style so drastically, they kind of fall on their face. Bathorthon, is one of those rare cases where it could wander off in a completely different direction, and it worked just as well as the old path he had been on. The early Bathory stuff is fantastic, and the Viking era Bathory stuff is fantastic too, just for completely different reasons. People like different albums from this era. I've always liked this one a lot. It still has a little bit of rawness around the edges. It's not as polished and produced sounding as Twilight of the Gods and such, which gives it some extra kind of charm. It also has my favorite song from this era, the closer, "One Road to Asa Bay." Just kind of very perfect epic storytelling. And very foreboding, with the way it closes out the story too. Everything about it just works incredibly well. So, yeah, he's borrowing from Man of War some, of course, but this album really sets the stage for all the Viking metal stuff that comes later. Even bands that do it in different styles. Amon Amarth isn't trying to sound exactly like Hammerheart. But does Amon Amarth exist without Hammerheart? I don't know. So many bands, take inspiration from what happened here, and just the direction and the imagination of it. He launches another genre here with a lot of the Viking metal stuff going off of this.
He actually admitted that he was mainly influenced by Metallica and Manowar on the Viking stuff.
Yeah,
you can hear the Manowar. Yeah,
you can definitely hear the Manowar. Yeah,
less talented Manowar, I would say.
It's funny. It's a less talented Manowar, but it works. But it works for different reasons. Manowar works because you're wanting to get drunk and chant along with everybody, and the crowd. This works, but it doesn't give that kind of epic vibe. This is very much more you're standing there pushing the boat out to sea.
Yeah, you're on the shores of Asa Bay watching the longship sail off to England.
Yeah, it's more of a solid. It's more of a solitary kind of vibe rather than the brothers in metal kind of vibe. But it's there's some definitely overlap in that big epic atmosphere that they both develop, and they both did it fantastic. So again, one that necessarily didn't get on the radar in the US in 1990, but a real seminal release, I think.
And the thing I think that sets that even more so apart from Manowar is Bathory had more of a cultural, it felt more culturally significant. The lyrics,
yes.
He was actually talking about history and mythology from his part of the world, which
Manowar's talking about swords and boobs.
Exactly. Swords and boobs and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. Great pick.
Yep. Nope. Good observation, Marty. So You staying in the thrash zone, or you venturing? You're going to put the.
I could stay in the
turn signal
thrash zone for this entire episode, but I'm just going to. I have to start getting into the. This is another twofer, but I don't think I'm stepping on anybody's toes here. These are two comps that were very influential in me expanding into the death metal sphere. This is one of them. Death is Just the Beginning 2, the original cassette I bought back in the day when it came out, Camelot Records, and I found this within the last 5 or so years in a used bin somewhere. Nuclear Blast and Relapse, that union, it highlighted a lot. There were some Relapse bands on here for sure, but what really pointed me in the direction of what's going on in Europe was this comp. You got Pungent Stench, Sinister, Dismember, Mortification from Australia on here. Amorphous Winters on here. I mean, this is a humongously awesome comp. I spun the absolute crap out of this thing. And Road Racer at the time also did Death's Door, came out in 1990. A collection of brutal death metal. And it is. I spun the hell out of this thing too. You've got Sepultura, Pestilence, Deicide, Morgoth, Sadist, Exhorder, which I never liked Exhorder. Sorry. I don't know. These are just very influential comps in my time. And we've talked about it on this channel a bunch. Compilations back in the day, there was no internet, people. You couldn't just go on Spotify and it recommend you shit from feeding off your algorithm. You had to see what bands and metal magazines, I remember picking up a Soothsayer t-shirt because Ventor from Creator was wearing a Soothsayer shirt in a picture I saw on Rip or I don't know, whatever, Thrash Metal magazine or whatever. I'm like, if Ventor is wearing a Soothsayer shirt, so I bought what the hell's the name of that album? I don't know. It's got a cartoon drawing on it. It was okay. I liked it, but that was the internet. You'd look at the metal press and you'd see what shirts they were wearing, or you'd look in the inside of the tapes and see what bands they thanked. That's how I figured out that Assassin were cool, and comps had a big place. I miss these days. And I know there's some labels that are still trying to put out the occasional comp. It just doesn't feel the same. It feels so unnecessary. It's a nostalgia trip that just doesn't feel the same now. But back then, this stuff is DNA. I could put on these comps and know what song is coming next without looking at the track listing, just because I listened to it so much. It was such a humongous part of my musical journey, and I think it is for anybody that was around during this period of time.
Yeah. You cannot replicate that. As hard as we try to, even a new release, I try my damnedest to get it buried in my brain and where exactly what song's coming. I mean, any of these albums, we could be driving on the highway and we could be doing 10 other things and we still know what song's coming next. I know what you mean. So us old fuckers, eh?
Yeah, but Wade, it's not the same anymore, but
no,
in a lot of ways it's okay because it's so much more convenient. It's better if you're a fan, especially if you're a young fan. I do not envy the fact that young metalheads coming up, let's all face it, the old stuff is just as relevant today as the new stuff, and the old stuff has a huge impact. It is just as vital for you to listen to it as the new stuff. So if you're a young kid, I remember being at Ohio Death Fest back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was filling in, the dude from Century Media had to go to the bathroom. He's like, will you sit down and watch the table? I'm like, yeah. And some kid came up, he points at Morbid Tales. He's like, what's this sound like? I'm like, what did you say? I mean, I couldn't believe so I tried to describe it the best I could. And then I think he just went and grabbed like a Cradle of Filth album, or he bought something. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't what I passionately described to him. And I just kind of like, man, these kids, if they want to get the right vibe of it, they need to get a little bit of everything. That's why dudes like Kellen, Killing for Company, he's a younger guy. He's not young, but he's, he came from the punk scene and he's actually done the work. He's studied, he's gone back in time. And that's what you need to do if you want to be a well-rounded metalhead, I think. Anyway, end rant.
Yeah. One good point you make there too, Marty. That's worth repeating because we all wax nostalgic about all these
Sure.
great things we love from the past. But it could be very frustrating back then too. To be fair about it, the good old days weren't always good. And just one random example, and this isn't even from a long time ago. This is like turn of the century when Eternus, and so the night became got a review in Metal Maniacs, and it sounded really interesting from the review. So I'm like, I really want to check this album out. It took me 8 months to find a copy of that CD, and I had to blind buy it because there was no way to hear it before I bought it.
Yep.
And again, that's as recent as that was 1999. So you think about that now. So it's like if you wanted to hear it now, you read a review of it now, you've probably already heard the album before the review even gets printed. Or if not, you can hop on YouTube and check it out for yourself right away if you're curious. And that is so much less frustrating than what we had to do. Yes, you had compilations and zines and all, and it was great, and we have a lot of fond memories of it. But if we're being honest, we also have a lot of frustrating memories about not being able to find or hear things. And a lot of times just having to, when you eventually found it, months and months later, you shelled out some money and just kind of crossed your fingers that it was going to work out because you really had no idea what you were getting. There was no way to know ahead of time unless, in some cases, maybe you had tape traded or somebody else had a copy, but even that could be hard to pull off. So yeah, it's worth pointing out that the good old days weren't always good, and today's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah, they weren't good, but the hunt, the thrill, that's what instilled. I think you see a lot of these big collectors nowadays. Like there are a lot of older dudes because the thrill of the hunt was real, and it was even more so. Like thank you lists, where I would just go in and buy whatever was on Relapse or Nuclear Blast or Earache. Sight unseen because I hadn't heard it and I didn't know it looked cool, but. Nowadays, you really don't have to hunt. You just listen to it on Spotify or YouTube Music, and you're like, it's cool. And then it's just, you go to Metal Detector and type in the band, and it'll find it for you in the US in 2 seconds. So, I mean, the thrill of the hunt is it's lazy shit nowadays. It really is. To buy, like when the whole black metal shit was exploding. I remember hearing about all these bands and buying like Shadow Throne by Satyricon. It cost $25 to have that imported from Europe, and you had to wait. So when you got it, it's like all the sweeter. Even if this sucks, I'm going to listen to it 25 times because I spent $25 on it. But anyway, we're off on a tangent here. We're back into the collector shit. Sorry,
Darcy, get us back on.
Get us back on track, Darcy.
But I totally agree with you. Even the blind buys that I made back in the day, I just learned to love them because I mean, I didn't have tons of money. I was just like, I'm going to play this fucking thing until I love it. And I loved it. We rarely got rid of anything, or, you might've traded a few here and there, but anyways, let's get us back on track. I'm going to step out of the thrash zone again, but I'm not stepping into the grunge zone because this shit is not grunge. Alice in Chains, Facelift. I always say this is not grunge. This is just, I don't know. I always just called this metal. This is maybe not metal, but just a good album. It was different at the time for me. And what did I hear first? Man in the Box. But when I heard the song Sea of Sorrow, I was like, yes, that is a killer track. Love Lane Stolly's vocals, Jerry Cantrell, just a fantastic album. I love Dirt more, but
Dirt's a perfect record. It really is.
Dirt is my favorite Alice in Chains album, but I really do enjoy this one too. Not quite as good, but definitely good for 1990, and this is their debut. So there's my next pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was another one that was definitely getting marketed to heavy metal fans before they became popular because
they
were on tour that the Slayer and Megadeth Titans of Thrash, the Titans, I guess it was called.
Yeah, Thrash of the Titans in Europe. They weren't in North America though, were they? No, and I don't know, maybe they're there's a few times where they got booed pretty bad, but they just went and put their heads down and played. And hey, good for them, because it is a good album. And maybe that band didn't quite fit that bill, but where were you going to put them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but were they a last minute replacement? Didn't someone like in Death Angel get hurt or something? And or it may have been a different tour that Alice in Chains got put on because somebody else got hurt. And
but Death Angel had a bus crash, and they were that actually they broke up for a while after that.
Right,
14 years.
Yeah, they were in the organization. There was 100 people in the chat a second ago. Cheers, everybody, for watching. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Good pick, Darcy. Okay, Ellen.
All right. If everybody else is out of the thrash zone, I'll keep the thrash zone.
I've still got about 5 or 7.
I got lots of thrash left.
Oh, there's going to be plenty. I'm just. This is my chance to jump in since you guys have done.
Is this going to, Ellen? Is this going to be Defiance, Terra Firma?
Probably not, because that album is like.
That's one of the albums from 1990. I'd be happy to forget.
You could have lumped. They could have went on tour with Power Mad. It would have been the Yawn Fest anyway.
Since you brought it up, Darcy, Defiance, is kind of a good example of where some thrash was saturated by 1990. We're showing some very good thrash albums tonight, but some of these bands were past their prime a bit. The Soldiers of Misfortune by Sacrifice you showed earlier. While not a bad album, it doesn't measure up to the two that came before it in most people's eyes. The same with some of these other bands coming out, like Defiance is just kind of a very paint by numbers thrash band at that point. Some people would say the same thing about the album I'm about to show, although it's kind of a love it or hate it one. And Darcy, I think you've come around on this one, having watched some of your videos lately. Testament, Souls of Black is a 1990 album.
That's still a yawner album for me. I tried. I have it on tape.
I like this one, but I get that it's not as good as some of the ones that came before it.
That's all I was ever saying, because I really do like that album, but it wasn't as good as the first three. That's all I'm saying for sure.
Yeah. I would put this one. I would actually put this one ahead of the second album. Is it New World Order? No World Order?
New Order. The New Order.
The New Order. Yeah. That one never did a lot for me personally, but
Practice What You Preach was a definite. It was a short. The New Order was short because they had to put out another record quick, and that's why there's a cover on it. You got an Aerosmith cover on it. They didn't have a lot of time to put that one out.
Yeah. It kind of, even the cover, it just kind of shows it like this generic, space view of Earth. It just
with the skull in the mist. Yeah,
that whole album felt just like a little bit of a miss. But this one I've always liked. It's not their strongest, not making that case, but it's still a good set of songs overall. The production's not perfect on it. It needed maybe a little more work there. This was another one that the story was always that this one also was a little bit rushed after Practice What You Preach to get something else out so they could get back on the next tour cycle on time. But this one has held up well for me over time. I actually remember in college, I had one of those weird semesters where all the exams were on Monday or Tuesday. And so I was like, well, I got nothing to do for the rest of the week. I actually went to the library and checked out the book 7 Days of May and read it just to go along with the Testament song, because I had no idea what the book was about. But yeah, so this is another one where it's still a good thrash album, I think, but people are starting to be like, well, it's not their best. They've done better ones before this. So it's another one that kind of feels like thrash it's not the pinnacle of Testament. It's not the pinnacle of thrash. So we're kind of getting to that point with some of these genres. We probably won't talk about hair metal much tonight, but some of the hair metal releases from 90, even though they were still selling well, they also start to feel like, we've heard this before, and we've actually heard you do it better. So I think around 1990 is when that, style, even though it was still selling a ton and still getting a lot of airplay and MTV rotation, a lot of that stuff like Poison, Flesh, and Blood, it sold a ton of copies. They played Unskinny Bop until you wanted to vomit.
Oh, Jesus. Don't even utter that word.
Oh, God.
We play that at practice every once in a while just to be stupid and just to laugh about it. Yeah.
But name another song off that album. It's hard because.
Which album is it?
Flesh and Blood, I think is the title of it. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And Flesh and Blood may be the next one.
I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask there.
I don't know.
Oh, I say,
I-
and so that's
Yeah.
I don't know if there was a very successful follow-up single off the album, because it's kind of like, okay, we've heard that one enough. Are we done with it? And then just everybody was kind of moving on to something else.
was there one
So,
called Ride the Wind? Or is that
maybe I'd have to double check. I don't know. Rat's Detonator is kind of the
Oh,
same way.
you're putting that in my head now. Ride the wind, never going back till it touch the midnight sun. Ugh.
Yep. I like
But,
the
I do want to touch on that Testament. Like, what a solid discography. It's very. I love Testament. They are in my personal big four. I love Testament. I really don't hate any of their albums. I don't even hate Demonic. It has some great tunes on it too. But Break Like the Wind. Oh, that's Spinal Tap. Okay.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Testament, tough discography. I showed this in my video, but I was gonna do a two for like Marty was gonna do too, but I showed this ticket stub. If you can blow me up for a second.
Yep.
So that is Testament on that tour opening for Megadeth. $20.
Wow.
1990, October 27th, 1990. But I mean,
Which everybody, just so you know, is about $1.50 in US money. Just saying.
okay.
I was going to say you can't even buy the tour T-shirt for $20 nowadays.
Yeah, no.
But
Much
we
less
have
get into
really
the tour.
good health care, okay? All right.
You do, yeah.
It doesn't cost me $7,000 to break my fucking arm, okay?
Just don't do it. Just please don't do it.
But yeah, no, good discography. One of the most solid thrash discographies out there, I think. But yeah, good pick, Alan.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll wrap up my hair metal rant here and let Marty move on. Rat's Detonator is kind of similar, where it had a single, it did okay, it got
It's
some
not
rotation.
a bad album either. It really isn't.
I like that.
I do too.
But at the same time, it also felt kind of like, well, here's another Rat album. Let's trot out the single, give it some play. It'll chart somewhere in the bottom half of the top 40, and then it'll be gone, and we'll move on to something else. Maybe a second song will get a little play. It very much was at the point where people we're still buying it and we're still listening, but you could tell everybody was getting a little bit tired of it. And meanwhile, you had other bands were getting lumped into that. This is the only one I'll show. House of Lords did their second album, really good album. But this kind of these bands weren't getting much of a push anymore. So if a new band was getting lost in just the mass of bands. You had your big top alpha tier established. Smaller bands weren't getting pushed through to the top anymore. The new albums coming out were selling, but yeah, I think glam was pretty long in the tooth, and so it's not a surprise that the stage was kind of set for 1991 to come along and have grunge very quickly start to sweep these bands away, like we talked about earlier. But that's enough about that. So, Marty, let's hand it over to you.
All right. Let's okay. I've avoided it long enough. This is a monumental album. Left Hand Path. That is the thick as a free range bison guitar tone that launched a million bands still to this day. The Sweet Death Chainsaw HM2 heavy metal pedal, Boss heavy metal pedal. And any metalhead that's into the extreme side probably owns one. I've got one. I bought it for $20 in a guitar store back in the day, and has a knob on it that was replaced. To get this tone, you crank all of them to the right, you max them out. I think I read that they recorded this on a PV Pacer. Is that the name of the PV Pacer amp? Kind of like a slightly larger practice amp encased in a box, like an amp box with a heavy metal pedal cranked. Yeah, and the interesting thing that this was recorded at Studio Sunlight by Thomas Skogsberg, and the Studio Sunlight drum sound is an E-kit. I never knew that. So all these classic death metal bands from back in the day is actually an electronic kit. kind of that blew my mind hearing that. Just the way it's produced, you can't really tell. But so all these Studio Sunlight death metal band, yeah, it might have been a Bandit. I think you're right, Jeremy. It was one of those PV amps, but maxed out with a HM2 pedal. But yep, electronic drum kit, D drums, and this is just, you know, I can also I'll show this as well if I can find it. Did I put it in the stack? Yeah. Carnage was the predecessor. Dark Recollections also came out in 1990. This
Really
is
cool album.
Yep, members of Dismember. It's got Michael Amott from who went on to be in Carcass, and of course Arch Enemy. Yeah, Carnage. Basically, there was a bit of a cross pollination here. And you got Nihilist, and Entombed is basically a bunch of Nihilist demos, songs come to fruition to a proper studio. But yeah, awesome stuff. Love it. I just this is just the first time I heard this album, I was utterly stunned at the guitar tone and the songs. The songs are well written. The Gothenburg sound had a bit of a punky vibe to it, which I also was kind of drawn to. So there's a bit of punk on this stuff, which they kind of bled dry when it came to Clandestine. That was just a structurally ridiculous record. I'm still not fully a big, humongous fan of Clandestine, but Left Hand Path, a monumental death metal record. People are still emulating it to this day.
So question for both of you. Is that the most important metal album of 1990? Not the best, but is it the most important thing that came out there, considering what it did to help Swedish death metal just become global?
I think so. I would say it's right up there. It's top. I mean, I'm looking at other things that came out during that time, because America had a very burgeoning scene as well. So it isn't just.
Yeah. I'm not trying to ask if it's the best or not, but just in terms of importance, what it did to the heavy metal landscape. I didn't come across anything else from 1990 I think that had any bigger of an impact.
Yeah, and I don't have the history that Marty or maybe you have with that album, but my time hanging around on YouTube, the amount of people that talk about it, it's one of the most talked about albums, period. It's always Left Hand Path, and I get it. I mean, there's the king himself. I mean, Mark absolutely loves that album, and probably one of his, besides Autopsy, one of his very favorite bands. But yeah,
Mark G with the C, start thinking about a topic, man. We got to get you on. You've been on the list. I know you work nights, so you're used to being up late.
We see now that you can stay up this late.
We know that you can stay up. You're up. So start thinking of a topic and reach out to me. I put my email in the chat. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And he's probably at work sitting in the bathroom right now or some shit. So
but Alan, I would agree. I think it's probably the most influential death metal record from this era, just because, like I said, there are people still to this day emulating that guitar sound.
Oh yeah. It's the sound that launched hundreds of other bands.
Yeah. And it put the Swedish sound, it put a stamp of authenticity on a Swedish sound. There was the Gothenburg, there was a Stockholm. I think these guys were Stockholm, actually. I said Gothenburg. I think these guys were Stockholm. But Gothenburg was more melodic. And that was a whole nother thing. But still, the Sunlight sound, exactly. Studio Sunlight, you got the D drums and you got the HM2 pedal through a PV Bandit. Wow. They got that out of they made this out of that combo. It's fucking crazy, dude. The riffs just undeniably massive.
Yeah. Too Ruthless and Mark and others in Europe who have stayed up late to watch. Thank you very much. Appreciate y'all hanging out.
Cheers. We love you guys. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Hope you can sleep in the morning.
Right on. Darcy, you're up. I'm gonna go visit the little boy's room.
Oh, are you? I'm gonna show something good though.
I'll wait and see what it is before I disembark, and I'll turn up something here. Oh yeah.
There we go. Yep.
All right. So I've been hanging on to this one for a while, but definitely right in thrash mode. And I don't need to tell anybody on here that this is essential Slayer. part of my top 3 Slayer albums for sure. I just think this one is kind of, if you took Rain and Blood and South of Heaven and sprinkled in a little bit more really great songs, this is what you get. Seasons is just an awesome album, top to bottom. Great tracks like, War Ensemble. I think that's probably the first one I ever heard.
Mhm.
But Spirit in Black, one of my favorites. Dead Skin Mask, of course. Hollowed Point, Temptation. I mean, the closing track. How perfect is the title track of this album too? So I don't know. If we were doing 1986, I'd be holding up Rain and Blood because that's where it kind of started with me. I never heard Slayer before that, but this is kind of, just Slayer all coming together. I know it's not always everybody's top pick, but it's definitely up there. Love this album, so definitely had to show it in the old Thrash. What did we have? The Big Four had 3 out of 4 in 1990 put out an album, so this
Actually,
so 3 out of 4.
And we haven't mentioned the other 2 yet. This is the first of them
we actually
touched
haven't.
on.
So I'm sure we'll get to those too, but this is definitely a top pick for me for 1990.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't necessarily rank it that high. Part of the problem is Slayer just has a heck of a lot of really good albums. So being 4th in the Slayer catalog is nothing to be ashamed of.
No. But I think overall, I'm kind of a first 6 Slayer albums are kind of where I'm at. After that, I'm not saying they're bad, but they're not my go-tos. Anything after Divine Intervention now, which is an album that has really grown on me, Divine, over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years. Went back to it, really love it now. But definitely Seasons in the Abyss is an essential Slayer for sure.
Let's face it. I think in the annals of metal time, Slayer is one of those bands. They stuck to their roots. There was a slight deviation here and there. Divine Intervention had a little bit of a punk vibe, which is part of their DNA. I'm not going to say that was wrong. Then they got the new metal stuff on, Diabolos and Musica, or whatever. But they're one of those bands that stuck to their roots. And I think the evolution of metal, technological advancements and speed, musical evolution, I think, kind of left Slayer in the dust. It's just one of those, they're one of those bands. I mean, I listened to their latest album, Repentless, and I hear it and I'm thinking, yeah, it sounds like Slayer. But at this point, there's a point, I think, in every metalhead's listening career, where Slayer you start to care about Slayer less and less, their progression. You can't take away their classics. Always going to love the first 4 or 5 records, but
yeah,
they're just, I think the evolution of metal left Slayer in the dust.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
And you mentioned Repentless too, but you can really tell the impact that Jeff wasn't there. I mean, there's only maybe, I think there's 2 leftover tracks that had Jeff's input on Repentless. I can't name them off by heart, but the rest was pretty much Kerry King. Because I mean, Gary Holt was just a hired gun. He wasn't there to write anything.
I think he just played solos on that record too.
Yeah, basically that's what he did. And but I think you really missed Jeff on that album.
Yeah. And we've mentioned this with a couple of other bands tonight previously to this, but this one also in a way feels a little bit like an end of an era for Slayer. Divine Intervention could sort of go with that early Slayer, but there's also, a couple of years gap before you get that.
Yeah, 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another one where we're here at 1990 and we're seeing these bands are still putting out really good, really solid albums. But, in hindsight, it does seem like, the chapter was kind of closing for some of these acts.
Yep.
Same's going to be true of my next pick.
Well, why don't you show us that next pick, Alan?
Let me do that.
What do you got?
Nice segue.
Nice. Yes. Worked that in just right. Some of the big traditional metal bands were still, active, and some of them were, still landing some really good stuff in 90, including this one. Judas Priest came roaring back to life.
Oh, that was
Painkiller.
1990. Holy crap. Yeah.
This is 90. Yeah, I always think it's 91, but it's a 90. Priest, of course, had been huge throughout the 80s, but they kind of had wandered, off into, cocaine party land for a bit. You had Turbo is an album that a lot of people are fond of, but I
have a nostalgic appreciation for that album.
I like it.
Everybody says that, but is anybody going to rank it as like, one of, the most, important albums of the 80s or one of the best Priest albums ever?
No, but I can put it on and enjoy it, and that's good enough.
I can too. And then, but then after that, you also have Ram It Down, which has at least half of it moments too. half of Ram It Down is solid. But overall, in terms of reputation, Priest had kind of been on a bit of a downward slope over those albums. They're not held in the same regard as anything that came before that. Some people even point out, Defenders of the Faith. I think it's an excellent album. The production on it makes it seem very dated. It's got that, whole 80s electronic drum thing going on. And so what do Priest do? They come back with, probably the most forceful album they ever made. This one is just nonstop, full tilt.
Yeah, it's a great record.
The only song on here that's not just, pure, full force, high speed is Touch of Evil, which is a cool song. So nothing wrong with it. So yeah, this was, the Priest. Some people can say, will criticize them because they're like, oh, it doesn't sound enough like Judas Priest. Well, Priest always kind of changed with the times, though. The first few Priest albums don't sound anything like Hellbent for Leather. Nothing from the 70s sounds like the early 80s stuff. Like we just described, the late 80s stuff doesn't sound like the earlier stuff. So Priest had always kind of, had their sound evolving, and they're just doing the same thing here, but they're going, in a much more pure heavy metal direction than they had been in recent years before this. The album's held up incredibly well, in my opinion, over time. It's an all-time favorite of mine. And so, again, this is just, one of the old guard, one of the 70s metal bands showing that, they were still very relevant and capable of putting out, a monster album, even at this relatively late date in their career. I mean, by this point, Priest's been together in one form or another for over 20 years. The first forms kind of come together there in the late 60s, early 70s. And for them to deliver something like this that late in the game is pretty amazing. But like I alluded to, this is also kind of the end of an era for Priest because, as they tour through, tour after tour after tour, by the time the dust settles, well, Halford is gone and Priest is going to be a very different beast for several years moving forward into the Ripper Owens era. So once again, there's kind of an end of an era here. The big, the big, shiny chrome Priests of the 1980s are done at this point. And the 90s hold something very different for Priest after this. But yeah, go ahead, Darcy. Sorry.
Sorry. Couple of huge factors on there. Scott Travis coming in on drums. One of the most memorable drum intros to a song that you're ever going to hear. Mm-hmm. And having Chris Sangrides as the producer was a big change for Judas Priest. Spent years with Tom Allom, who they're back with now with Andy Sneap. But I believe Chris Sangrides brought another element to the sound of this album. And I don't know if anyone knows that Judas Priest is my overall favorite band, has been since 1982. And believe it or not, this is not my favorite Judas Priest album, but I love it. But I still stand by what I said before is when you have a song that kicks off this album, Painkiller, which is top notch in every way. The solos are scorching, the drums, the vocals, everything. But I still think there is some weak tracks on here. And I'm not going to say it's a bad album because it's not, but it's not as good as I think people make it out to be. But I still believe a lot of it, timing has a lot to do with it. And the other thing is what you already touched on is what were their two past albums? What they came from Turbo and Ram It Down, which Turbo was supposed to be called Twin Turbos. So Ram It Down was some couple of newer tracks with some leftover tracks from this Turbo session.
You can tell it's a very Turbo
and you
sounding
can tell.
album.
And I mean, Ram It Down. Well, we don't need to get into the electronic drums on that, but where am I going with this? But Painkiller, still a great album. But
Yeah.
But anyways, Sangrides, may he rest in peace. He was a great producer, and you know Scott Travis, still in the band today, still killing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Pretext had a comment that they used to air drum it in school. Same with us. Like I remember you just like sit there and just kind of pat out, that drum intro like on the desk, and there would be like that guy on the other side of the classroom who would look over and just point you and be like, "You're doing Priest." It's just that recognizable. Yeah.
And Rick brought up today is Ralph Halford's birthday. If you're watching, which I know you're not, may your leather assless chaps never chafe. Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers to the metal god. Happy
Gene Simmons' birthday today too.
All right, on.
Well,
not that I
give his name. Now we have to pay him royalties, Darcy. Thanks.
No,
great.
I don't give a shit about him.
Halford lets us shout him out for free. That's why he's at metal god status, and Simmons is somewhere.
And the fact that he's 72 years old and still doing what they do, it's absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. I mean, my dad's older than that, and I can't imagine my dad. I just can't. I mean, you look at your parents being around that age and try to envision them doing what these guys do. It's so absurd. It's just absurd.
I don't want to get way off topic, but there's one guy.
Nice one, Anthony.
Yeah, I can't stop laughing at that, Anthony.
Anyway, sorry, Darcy.
There's one guy that I feel is ageless. Sammy Hagar is 76 years old.
He's starting to show it, though. He's starting to finally show his age a little bit.
He's man. If I actually make it to 76 and look as good as he does, but you're right, he is starting to. And how old's Alice Cooper? He is still up there pumping out albums.
He's mid-70s now too. Yeah,
but he's been clean for a long time. Like Gene Simmons, he's clean too. So, well, of course, Rob is as well. They all kicked it, but
that's why they're still here.
All right, who is
next? What do you got?
I did Painkiller, so Marty, it's your turn.
It's me. Man, I still want to go with Thrash, but I'm gonna pick away at some of these death metal ones here. I gotta show this because this was a big deal when this came out.
Oh yeah,
the debut, Cannibal Corpse, Eaten Back to Life. Skull Full of Maggots was my favorite on here. I never listen to this anymore. I don't care, to be honest. But back when this came out, it was a big deal. Yeah, I mean, what do you say about this? I could go on. It doesn't matter. It's Cannibal Corpse. They evolved technically, but not really stylistically, which is fine. They got a lot more technical, a little more streamlined, I guess I should say. But this is raw, blunt, U.S. death metal. It's good stuff. There's some catchy this is Cannibal Corpse sounding old school, and the songs are catchy. They're memorable, but yeah. What do you say? Yep. Classic.
Okay, I got one question. Are you still on board with these guys to this day?
I mean,
hit and miss.
Their albums end up coming to me somehow. I don't ever really physically go out and buy them, but they end up showing up in my house on occasion. But I never listen to them. Never listen. I hear it. I hear it on Sirius XM. I might have a friend that'll play it, and I'm fine with it when it's playing. It's cool. It's good stuff. I've got, I don't know, a smattering of the Corpse Grinder albums. I don't have them all, but I've got enough. I've got enough. Do I need a new Cannibal Corpse? I don't. But where are you at with it, Darcy? I know you're just kind of having a reawakening with that. I saw your recent video where you're saying you're kind of getting it.
I really like the Corpse Grinder.
It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just
Well, to be honest with you, back in the day when you said this was great stuff. I thought it was a fucking joke. I really did. I thought, how could anybody listen to this? And it took me years and years to get into it, but I get it now. I totally do get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ryan said not my preferred, but yeah.
Darcy, you should definitely check out Left Hand Path. It's especially if you like the Glorious Dead. Not that we're an Entombed ripoff band, but I think you would appreciate the riffs and the sound of Left Hand Path for sure.
Oh, I own it. Actually, I think Mark G sent me Clandestine on vinyl and Left Hand on CD.
Killer. Nice. All right. Darcy, you're back.
All right. This one, I remember buying it the day it came out at a place called A&A Records in Saskatchewan, Canada, where I live. Iron Maiden, No Prayer for the Dying.
Nice.
Yep.
Now, I'm a huge fan of
Tail Gunner. Good song.
I'm a huge fan of Seven Son of a Seven Son, so I really kind of thought this was a bit of a letdown, kind of a stripped back Iron Maiden. No more Adrian Smith. Yannick is in the band. But I don't mind this album at all. I mean, Tail Gunner. My favorite track on here though is not Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. That is
that is such a shitty song. That's a
Marty's
song.
finger was hovering over the delete button.
Fate's Warning, great track. And Public Enema #1, not bad. I mean, Holy Smoke is probably as, I don't know, would you say almost as commercial as Iron Maiden got to that point, except for if you took, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which was a Bruce Dickinson song brought to Iron Maiden and redone for this album. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this one? Did you feel the same as me? Like that
it was okay.
They kind of took the foot off the gas pedal, and I don't know, just
they sound tired. They sound tired.
Yeah, not as much going on this album, but and last cover to feature Derek Riggs his artwork for quite a few years actually. But
the funny thing is, what was I going to say? Never mind. I forgot. It totally left my mind.
No, but you said they sounded...
the fact that the Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was a single off that record, and it charted, if I remember right, and that just shows that people blindly follow some certain bands because that song sucks. Boring, terrible song.
Yeah, this one for me, I didn't mind the album when it came out. It has not aged well for me at all.
No.
I like the opening pair of songs, Holy Smoke and Tail Gunner. Yeah,
those are good songs.
Even those songs have their flaws. Tail Gunner is pretty repetitive.
It's a pretty formulaic. It's like a leftover formula, but it's still good.
Yeah, and like you said, Darcy, Holy Smoke, it does feel like it's kind of slightly commercially. It's kind of like it's they're knock at evangelists, which by 1990 was really kind of tired material. Well, it's like we've been here, we've heard a lot of bands do this many times. It's not that the song's bad. It's just kind of like, okay, so this is the almost obligatory song about TV preachers. Great, whatever. And after that, I struggle to find a whole lot that holds my attention on this one anymore.
And the one thing I got to tell you guys, and I'll hold this up if you can zoom back in on me.
Yeah.
This was the first time I saw Iron Maiden live. Okay. First time ever. And I was underwhelmed at the stage, the whole thing. I thought I was going to get the whole, and I even cut this out. I still have this from the paper from back in the day. Iron Maiden, No Prayer for the Road, On the Road with Anthrax special guests. And I think at the time, I think I liked Anthrax better that night. But my first time seeing Maiden wasn't like going to them nowadays. This was a really stripped back Iron Maiden at the time. So I can't believe I still have this. This is literally from 33 years old. Cut out from a newspaper.
Very cool.
But yeah, and then I didn't see them again until, oh shit, I can't even remember when I saw them after that. I don't even think I seen them till 08 maybe. Yeah, probably 08.
Yeah, this was another one that in a way starts to feel, looking back, it starts to feel like, okay, yeah, chapter's kind of closed. That amazing run of early Maiden albums kind of comes to a halt with this one. And you get one more album with Bruce, but everyone knew that was not going to last much longer.
Yeah.
And it's so yeah, that it starts to, you go from a band that could do no wrong for so long to a band that starts to get kind of hit or miss for different people from this album forward.
Yeah, I mean their first 7 albums, I mean they're classics, absolute classics.
Oh yeah. All right, Alan.
All right, I'm going to do something unusual and show a live album. Because this band did a live album in 1990 that actually had decent circulation, and I think it's a really good representation of everything they had done up to that point. It's a terrific live album, and it's a Doom album. So once again, Doom represented in 1990. Candlemass had their live recording. This is the CD. The vinyl has a different cover, and the vinyl has a couple of extra tracks on it because it's a double LP. So if you're really into Candlemass and you want to get as much of it as you can, you do want the live press instead. Great sound on this, great track selection. Messiah sounds great on it. There's good some good crowd interaction on it, but it doesn't drown out the music or anything. And it's also, even the CD, it's a long set. I mean, you get a lot of Candlemass classic tunes from start to finish on this. So yeah, this one, I got it out of the cutout bin. I don't remember if it was Camelot or one of the other record stores at the mall, but yeah, I got it, a couple years later for like $5 and was just so happy to find, more Candlemass stuff and to get it for cheap too. Yeah. And again, this is kind of Candlemass at the peak of their powers. This is on the Tales of Creation tour. So, they've done 4 magnificent albums at this point. But, after this, Messiah's out. They end up on different labels, different vocalists. The albums in the 90s aren't bad, but they're different. So very much, they're following the same trajectory as Priest and Maiden in some ways, where their star is going to diminish for a period of time, due in part to lineup changes and just other things shifting around. But you still, in 1990, everything's okay. You still have Candlemass going strong, and even though it's not a studio release, it's an excellent live recording. I still enjoy playing this from time to time, although I usually take out the vinyl now so that I get the extra tracks.
All right. Well, damn it. Let's get into this. Love them or hate them, this album rules. It just does.
There we go.
We've danced around. I still can't decide if I prefer this one or Killing Is My Business is my favorite Megadeth. I love them both. I also like Peace Sells too, but I don't love the production on that one. In fact, I should say I don't love the production on the debut, but there's a charm to it, and I love Gar's drum production on that. He just rips on that album. Great drummer. This here is I love it. I love this record. I'll still, if I'm going to listen to Megadeth, it's either the first one or this one are the ones I'm pulling. And it's just the fact that you watch some kind of monster and you see Dave Mustaine. I know Ryan used to have a zine called Dave Mustaine Sucks or something. I don't know. So I'm not gaining any love from him on this, but to see Dave Mustaine crying about being kicked out of Megadeth, I get it. I get why he's upset about it. I get why it plagues him. But this album right here negates just about everything Metallica did, as far as I'm concerned. The riffs on here, the songwriting, the ferocity, the guitar work. Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, Rust in Peace, Polaris. Those 2 songs, the bookend a great album with just a over-the-top riff monster songs. And
yeah,
I love Tornado Souls. I love Poison Was the Cure. My God, I'm sick of Hangar 18. To be honest, that's like the paranoid of this album. If I never hear that song again,
Five Magic.
Five Magics. What a fucking ripper! I mean, this album rules, and it's a top 10 record for me of all time. I love it.
The
Great
guitar
stuff.
tone is absolutely insane.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Mhm.
It is so. I don't even know what the right words to describe that guitar tone are. It's just perfect. It's just perfect.
And you got Marty Friedman, who's an amazing guitar player. You've got Nick Menza. They were never this good again. I'm sorry. They put out some cool stuff afterwards. I like some of their stuff here and there, hit or miss for me. But this album, wow, what a statement! This crushes Metallica. It really does. Great record. Great record.
Great record. Great choice too. I mean, that was coming no matter what. So
it was coming.
Yeah. So, question about that one: is that the best album of 1990? A little harder because there's a lot of good stuff we're showing. Does anything top that one?
For Thrash, for me, it is. Okay, if you're making me pick.
If I'm making you pick,
yeah.
What was the question? Say the question again, Alan. I was reading comments and I can't read and listen. At
that's
the same
okay.
Time,
is Rust in Peace the best metal album of the year for 1990?
Thrash album of the year, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So Darcy, you sound more committed.
It is. Yeah.
Because he put it up against, you got your Deicide self-titled, you've got
Left Hand Path.
You got Left Hand Path. It's different. You can't, it's like comparing apples to oranges. I would say in the thrash category, this is the best album. Yeah, but
Marty, if you had to pick one, I think you'd probably pick Left Hand Path then.
Fuck, I don't know. That's a tough. I don't have to, which is good.
Yeah.
It's like the keeper. It's like the keeper reaps. There's no wood chipper behind me for my shit to go into afterwards. But yeah, I don't know. It beats Metallica. It beats every Metallica record. You could say, oh, but they're different. They're not. And the soul of Metallica left when they kicked him out. I mean, the early Metallica stuff has got Mustaine DNA all over it. It just does.
Yeah, and it has like freaking Max Norman and Mike Klink were the producers on that album, which, Mike Klink is very famous for Appetite for Destruction, but, two kind of high profile guys.
Yep.
And I mean, I just can't say enough about that album. I just absolutely will. I even like Dawn Patrol, for Christ's sake.
It's stupid, but I like it. It fits in the context of the album.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cheers, Roger. Good to see you, man.
Hey, Roger.
Roger's, what time is it for Roger? It must be.
It's 5 hours, I believe.
5 a.m.
5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, he's a good dude, Roger.
Roger's a good dude. And he's been on. Check out, he was on with us a couple Fridays ago, and he filled in on a Wednesday Album Club too. I can't remember. Oh, that Plague Fever.
Yep.
That stupid Plague Fever album. Cheers.
Well, and then 5 minutes after I watched his one video, I was pulling the trigger on your album because he's like, you got to get this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to it. And like 5 minutes later, I'm like, Marty, I text Marty. I said, send me one of those. Here's the money. Let's go.
And I'm glad, Roger, you like the record. The fact that the last song gave you chills, I'm like, cheers for an old school bastard to get it. I appreciate that, man. Cheers.
Great album.
All right. Who's next? I didn't, it's Darcy.
You did Rust in Peace. We're back to Darcy.
All right. Not my introduction to this band, but this is my favorite album from them.
Jeremy, one. you can't cut it out of the album of the year because of a minute long song. Come on. Anyway,
there it is. Suicidal Tendencies, Lights, Camera, Revolution. Love this album. Very unique. I was never super into anything punky or crossover stuff. I know DRI, his name comes up a lot. I don't really know them that well, but love this album. There's a name. The production on here is by Mark Dodson, which you'll hear again. Some of these big names like Alex Perry-Ellis, Mark Dodson, Max Norman, their names are all over some of these thrash albums. But I don't know. This is, like I said, very unique. I I never heard anything quite like it at the time. And besides, what was the one before this one? How Will I Laugh?
Yep.
Yes.
Great album too, but this. If I had to pick one Suicidal Tendencies album, this is the one right here.
Oh, that's the wrong pick.
Well, you like their Join the Army, I bet.
I'm a self-titled guy. Their
Okay.
debut album is an awesome hardcore punk, unique. I heard that first, so I love that. And anything once they started getting more metal, they lost it for me. But
yeah, and this is where they were
thrashy
metal. There's still some goofiness in it too. Like I'll never forget that line of you would know crazy if Charles Manson was sitting on your front porch eating Fruit Loops or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's still that kind of Mike Muir kind of skater type of shit in there, but I love the album.
Everybody's saying Corner. I don't think they put out a record in 1990. No More Color came out in 89 and Mental Vortex came out in 91. So they were on my list for a minute, and then I started checking dates and went, oh shit, they didn't make it. So Corner is not in the 1990 zone.
Next episode
for sure.
Yeah. We have not done 91, so it'll happen sooner or later.
All right, Alan.
All right, let's dig into the vault for one. We're talking about all these popular, well-known albums. I'm getting itchy. More Doom. I pulled more Doom than I realized, but small band from Italy, never really went very far, but did some fantastic stuff before they disappeared. Requiem put out their first full-length album. It's called Via Crucis. It's a gatefold cover. This is very much in the tradition of Italian doom bands. There's Death SS and Paul Chain, fingerprints all over this one. One of the guys in the band, Di Donato, was also in the Black. He may still be in the Black. I think they're still knocking around, if I remember right. So, yeah. This one, just Requiem, I always liked because I always felt like they had the formula down very well without, they weren't as, kind of psychedelic or creepy as Black Hole, for example. They weren't as lo-fi sounding as early Death SS. Paul Chain, of course, goes in a million different directions. If you just want to kind of boil it all down and just like, I just want, something to kind of represent all of that Italian doom crazy weirdness, I always thought Requiem was a really good choice. They just kind of sit there right in the middle of that weird Venn diagram where all these bands were doing different stuff. Again, they didn't get much material put out. They had an EP before this one called Ex Voto. That one had a different vocalist, and the vocalist on the EP could be a little bit grating. He was a bit shrill. Vocals much better on Via Crucis, and after this they actually did a live album, kind of weird. I don't know, it may have been a contractual thing. This is pretty sure all their stuff is on the Minotauro label, which will be known to fans of this label will be known to fans of Italian crazy metal from that era. But the live album is actually really good too. They did an excellent job of capturing this, just very creepy vibe. You can tell they're playing in a place that, is almost completely empty. It's, there's very little fan noise or anything, but it really just adds to the atmosphere. If you like any of those, Italian doom bands that I have mentioned, and you've never checked out Requiem, this is a good one to track down. Some of the Minotauro stuff can be a little hard to find, but these albums have never been that expensive because nobody really cares about them, which is a real shame. I've always liked this album and I've always liked this band. And 1990 saw them put out their album. So we'll get back to rounding out the big four releases and all that stuff and do some more big death metal in a few minutes. But every now and then you got to shout out those releases that never quite made it out of the underground. And this is a great example of that. Requiem with Via Crucis.
Man, Alan stumping us all with two deep dives this episode. Killer.
Yeah, I wrote down that detest. I already have that one written down. I'm going to do this one too.
All right. It's coming, Mark. But not right now. This is for me the best death metal release out of 1990, and that's out of the US. Deicide, self-titled. It's a perfect death metal record. Florida death metal. It really is perfect. It crushes Obituary. It crushes Cannibal Corpse. It's evil as hell. The songs are intense as hell. Glenn's, offsetting lower and higher vocals layering on here were kind of unique for the time, other than, Carcass did that too, but this here wasn't pitch shifted. It's just it's a very American sounding death metal record, but it's evil as hell. And this is the best record they ever did. Legion was good, a little faster. The songs weren't as great for me, but I liked it. But after this, I mean, I could, if I'm listening to Deicide, it's this or Legion. This is a great record. It really is. It's evil as hell. And for an American band, it just felt very authentic. And you got this crazy bastard that burnt the crucifix into his forehead, which I read he regretted, which of course he did. What a dumb thing to do. What a dumb thing to do. But anyway, classic. Let's hear it. There isn't a bad song on here. Dead by Dawn, Lunatic of God's Creation, Sacrificial Suicide, Carnage in the Temple of the Damned, Day of Darkness, there is not a bad song on here. Absolutely crushing. Great album.
Okay. We're going to have a battle royale in the comment section then. Because you said that crushes. Okay.
It crushes Obituary. It crushes spiritual healing. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
This is my favorite death metal album of 1990 right
And I have it here too, because it's a great record. It's a great record.
You know what? The funny thing is, if you followed me for any extended period of time, I wasn't into this stuff in 1990. But this is my favorite death metal band, Obituary. I love pretty much everything. They got two kind of so-so albums. Other than that, even their new one, Dying of Everything, it's got some good shit on it too. I really enjoy it. But this thing, when I first heard it, I was really blown away that I loved it as much as I did. When I heard like Chopped in Half, I was like, what?
Feel the blood spilling from your mouth.
Oh yeah, or Find the Arise. What a great track. Anything. And even the cover of Circle of Tyrants, they do a killer job.
Yeah.
But
we could tell what their influence was.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. But even like Turned Inside Out, everything on this, and I love this cover. I always have.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Marty, have you heard the one they did during the lockout where they did this album live in its entirety?
No, the live stream, I did not see that.
Oh, I got it. Actually, just a second. It's right. Live Infection, it's called. So there it is, Live Infection.
Cool.
Man, they do a good job. They did this and Slowly We Rot in its entirety. No crowd, kind of just a live setting, probably, their little studio at home type of thing, but it was really good. But so I am late to the death metal party. Oh yeah, I heard that too. I heard that there was another mix up with artwork too.
That artwork is actually on a Lovecraft book too. I can't remember.
There's another portion of this. It's kind of like a split. Like this extends this way or something, but yeah, great album. Love this album. Definitely. But I still haven't really dug into Deicide that much. So I am gonna, first thing in the morning, I am gonna try that Deicide album you showed again.
And really, the first two Obituary records, that's really all you need. It really is all you need. They've kind of been putting out the same record over and over and over again. I like the new one. I like their last one. They're both good records. But man, if I'm going to listen to the Obituary, it's Cause of Death. It just is. Slowly We Rot, it had its place, but the fact that Tardy just kind of mushmouths the lyrics always bugged me. I think it's lazy. I think it's laziness. And to have to reproduce, knowing that you're going to go out there and reproduce that, mush mouth crap every time live is, I don't know, man. I think it's lazy. Anyway, Whatever. Alan.
Yeah, here's the Lovecraft book with the whole
Yeah.
art piece on it that y'all
Yeah.
were mentioning.
Yep.
So it's the back of the book has that segment, and then the front cover,
Which is
it
a
would wrap
Demolition
around.
Hammer. Demolition Hammer's Epidemic of Violence.
Yep, this one's been used on albums as well too. So yep, just an old H.P. Lovecraft anthology I've got sitting over there.
That is so cool.
Let's well, yeah, if we're doing Florida death metal, let's do some Florida death metal. This one does not have the same pedigree, as Obituary or Deicide, but I like this one a ton as well. Nocturnus the Key is a 1990 release. The band's incorporating some different synthesizers and going in kind of a sci-fi direction, which was very groundbreaking in a lot of ways. Not many death metal bands were doing that. Death metal band was zombies and gore and again, satanic horror kind of stuff. This was more like weird cosmic sci-fi satanic horror stuff with synthesizers and all in the background, but it works really, really well. I know a lot of folks, will quickly point to, Mike Browning's vocals as being kind of a weak link.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It never ruined Nocturnus for me, as it might for some. If it's not to some people's liking, that's cool. But yeah, I was just like the vibe of the album overall, that they were doing something, very different from what was happening on most of the rest of the scene. And yeah, I think, especially both the first two albums have held up really well for me over the years. So I understand this one doesn't get put on the same tier as the others. I'm not going to claim that, but I'll listen to this one, definitely as much as I would Obituary. Deicide's never been my band. Glenn's voice is just not for me. That's fine. I'm not questioning their, legacy or anything. It's just they're not the band for me. But Nocturnus I can get into. So lots of cool different things coming out of Florida here in 1990. So death metal hasn't completely taken over from thrash, as we've seen. Thrash still has some, fantastic records out in 90, but death metal is definitely kind of surging forward.
That's exactly what I told Mike about Deicide. I said that guy's voice is going to be the hurdle for me. It really is. I think that's what's holding me back on liking them is his vocals.
Yeah. I should give him another chance sometime too. It's been a long time since
I'm gonna for sure.
It just didn't. I mean, we and folks in the chat are goofing about the whole upside down cross on his forehead thing too. Another thing that never sat right with me. It wasn't the the anti-religion thing. It was that to me it seemed like such a shtick. And I've always been, even as a teenager, I was one of those people. I wasn't easily drawn in by gimmicks. So
what about Venom? Let's talk about Venom. Let's talk about Venom for a second, my friend.
But
That's
Venom,
the king of the shtick. I mean,
and I was not easily drawn into Venom at first. The first few times I heard Venom, I was just like, I don't know about this.
I'm not defending Deicide. I understand what you're saying. I just want to say that I think of shtick. The first thing I think of is Venom. Anyway,
no, and there are certainly exceptions to it, but yeah, I'm just saying, for a lot of my friends, as soon as they saw, I remember kids in the hallway just, talking such like Glenn Benton's going to kill himself when he's 33, man, just to, Christ, that's so wow. And I'm just like, no, he's not. That's just made up bullshit. He's just trying to get his name in the fucking magazine. Yeah. And there's like, no, man, he's real about it. It's going to happen. Just wait and see. I'm just like, yeah, we'll check back and see if that happens. That kind of thing, those are the kinds of things that draw a lot of people into those bands when they're teenagers. The gory artwork all over Cannibal Corpse and the crazy song titles and Glenn Benton with, the upside down cross and the promise to kill himself. Those kind of things, they did not have that same, they never hooked me into it. It's just like, okay, whatever. How's the music sound? If it doesn't click with me, then I don't care how, evil and spooky and blasphemous you're going to seem to be. I can get on board with that gimmick sometimes, but that's not the thing that's going to draw me in. Like with Venom, yeah, I don't mind that they do it, but I like Venom because the songs are insanely fun. I don't like Venom because they have "We drink the vomit of the priests" printed on the back of the cover. That's not the thing that spills on Venom. So that's my take on him.
All right. So, I'm up, I guess.
You are up again, Marty.
let's
all
keep
means.
going with Florida, because when this record came out, it was huge for me. Spiritual Healing.
There it is.
And basically, you got Chuck, a couple guys from Massacre, James Murphy, who was in every single band at that time during the day. He was in Hallows Eve. He was in Cancer. He had Disincarnate. He had all sorts of stuff going on. Agent Steel for a minute, if I remember right. I could be wrong on that. I loved the crap out of this record when it came out, and I spun it a ton. Looking back in hindsight, I never listened to this record. It sounds muddy to me. The songs are still good. I like them, but I prefer Scream Bloody Gore. Scream Bloody Gore is my Evil Chuck album. It just is. I like Human. I like what he did afterwards, but man, this was when this came out in 1990, I was obsessed with Death, 100%. Again, he was sound. I prefer the songs on the first two records, but this is a great record. Hasn't held up really well for me though.
No,
I
would say I'm more of the technical side of Death, more of a fan of that. But that one is kind of where it meets in the middle. That's kind of where they separated after that. They went this way, where you love Scream Bloody Gore.
I love that record. It's so sick. It's so good.
And Leprosy was still in a way, more on the raw side, maybe not as much as Scream Bloody Gore, but Spiritual Healing was, you can tell what was building in that band. I know,
yep.
Like I know Mark for sure, that's his go-to. If he had to pick one, it would be that one for sure.
I mean, I still know all these songs. I mean, I can sing along with every single one of these songs. I spun it so much. It became part of my imprint. It imprinted on my brain for sure. But it's still a great record, but I never listen to it anymore.
I would take Human or Symbolic over that any day of the week, personally.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with you guys. It's still a Death album. None of them are bad, but
no,
it's off. It's for a long time. It's been like, when I have to rank them, it's actually my least favorite in the Death catalog. It's not. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying if you put it compared to the other ones, for some reason, I just never want to revisit that particular one. I don't know. I'm weird.
What's next?
You're next.
We're all in the Florida death metal triangle at the moment. Let's see if Darcy stays there or breaks out for something.
I think I'm on track to get all through all my picks here, and Mel will be happy. That's what I'm all for tonight, is making Mel happy.
Well, let's show something different then. And this was different at the time. Queensryche, Empire.
Jet City Woman. Good song.
Yeah, and this to me, this was a big change for these guys. Well, not a big change, but it was really a natural progression for these guys. I don't know if you've ever watched my Queensryche ranking, but The Warning and Rage for Order are my absolute two favorite Queensryche albums.
Great albums.
I just love those albums. I love everything about them. We did 1986 together, and I know I showed Rage for Order.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Operation Mindcrime, one of the best concept albums ever. But this was really good. This has got some great tracks, but they kind of hit the commercial big time with this one.
Silent Lucidity.
Yeah, Jet City Woman. But still, my favorite track is the title track, Empire. I love the lyrics to it. I love the darkness to it. Best I can. But you know what? Now I can say to you guys, I don't think this one has held up for me over the years. It really, when I want Queensryche, I go for The Warning, or I go for Rage for Order, to be honest with you, because I mean, Operation Mindcrime just burnt right in my brain. I could just play it right now. But yeah, this one hasn't held up as much as I thought it. I really never thought about that till right now, but still a good album, but hasn't held up for me.
I gotta say, Jet City Woman, it's a commercial ass song, but every time it comes on, I love that song. I think it's a great, well written song with an endlessly catchy chorus. It's great. It's an earworm song.
And it starts off so cool too with the bass, and
yeah,
yeah, I love it. I love that song. Track, but the whole album, I don't know.
Yeah, and you're right, Darcy. I mean, it is a bit of a change of direction, definitely leaning a little more, commercial. That album's made to get some airplay. They had gotten pretty big off of Mindcrime, and Mindcrime, had a couple of songs that got some airplay, but as this dense, intricate concept album, there's only so much you can, pick it apart to play singles from. But yeah, that one, it definitely feels like it was, really meant to start, letting them move into, kind of a larger audience and such, which is okay. It's not unusual for bands, after they do a bunch of technical, complex stuff, to pull back from that and go, streamline things. We were talking about Rush with you, backstage before we came on, and Rush did the same thing, by the time they got to the end of the 70s. All that said, I'm with you though. Empire's always been a tough one for me overall. I'm looking at the track list right now, and I feel the same way I have for years. There's 11 songs, and I think I like 5.5 of them. So it's like exactly down the middle.
Yeah, and that's what I started looking at the track listing even right here, and I'm like, shit, I'm trying to pick out some songs to tell you guys, but I can't.
Yeah, you named most of the best ones. Best I Can is okay. As an opener, I'll give them that one. I don't even know what the Thin Line sounds like. I couldn't tell you. Jet City Woman is a great single off of it.
It's a good song. The Silent Lucidity on that one?
Yes, Silent Lucidity was the monster.
That they played that shit. They played that song till it's like terrible. I don't even want to hear it again.
Yeah, but Another Rainy Night is on here. That's another one
that's a good song.
Great, catchy song. Empire, yes, I agree, Darcy. That's a very cool song the way that's constructed. I love, even the weird little vocal thing they do with a couple of lines. Got an AK-47 for his best friend. Business. It sounds hokey, but it works.
Yeah.
But
Dwayne is saying it's the best Queensryche album. There you go.
No.
The battle lines have been drawn.
Sorry, Laz, no way, man. No way.
Well, and that's the thing. All the albums before this, Rage, Warning, Mindcrime, you gotta pick through those to find songs that aren't good, if not phenomenal. And this one, I'm looking at, this song I don't care about. This song I don't care about. This song I don't care about. This song, Della Brown, sure. Hand on Heart, One and Only, Resistance,
So they picked the singles wisely off that album, we'll say.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they did. No, but that's it. Yeah, half the album, makes good singles, and the other half of the album is just there to glue it all together. And it's the first time Queensryche had turned in an album that's kind of felt that way. So it is a strange, and it's another one that's a turning point for them. This is their commercial peak. We may not agree it's their best album, but it's certainly their best-selling album. But after this, again, you have a couple of years off, and they turned in Promised Land, and everybody was kind of like, "What the fuck is this?" Promised Land has its fans, but they start losing people really rapidly after this point. In 1990, everything's good. By the time the next album comes out, things are not so good.
But I just noticed something on the back too. Production by Peter Collins. So there's that Rush connection too. Like Peter Collins produced probably 3 or 4 of the 80s Rush albums. So they got that more proggy element. I mean, Queensryche's always had that element, but it's a mix between some proggy, commercial prog, let's call it. We'll invent a new slogan, commercial prog, but
it's Rush Moving Pictures kind of prog. That it's proggy, but it can be broken down into 4-minute songs you can play on the air, and people will love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Who's next?
That would be Alan.
Yep. Let's hit Florida at least one more time. Somebody in the chat asked for this one. I had forgot about this one, so I had to pull it off the shelf. I overlooked it somehow. We also get to this one out of Florida in 1990. Atheist, Piece of Time.
Good album.
Of course, very good album. It's not what Atheist came to be known for. They obviously metamorphosed very rapidly.
Yeah.
Even by the second album, it sounds nothing like this, and the third album sounds nothing like either of them. But this is a perfectly fine album for what it is. And even though you can say this one's rudimentary compared to the later stuff, when you compare this to the other, Florida death metal albums around 1989, 1990, these guys are already thinking on a different level. Even on this album, you're seeing, lots of hints that these guys are they're just operating in a different way. They're already building more intricate things into the music. It's not just going for a sick, gory sound or anything like that. It's like these guys are going someplace with this. They have a direction and an idea in mind, and they're going to see it through. So a cool album. It shows a lot of promise, and it's one I still like going back and playing this one from time to time, even though the other albums are the ones that get all the attention. Peace of Mind should not get overlooked. So I forget who mentioned this in the chat about 5 minutes ago, but
it's been throughout the evening. People,
thanks to folks for mentioning this one. I just completely slipped past me when I pulled records tonight, but it deserves to be mentioned just as much as the other Florida albums we've already covered.
David, atheists were from Florida. He thought they're from Quebec.
Nope.
Rest in peace, Roger Patterson, great bass player. Yep. Absolutely. Replaced by Tony Choi on the album came after it. What the hell was it called?
Unquestionable
Presence. Yeah. All right. I've got a couple more death metal ones, and I'm getting back into the thrash realm here. This album, I got to say, I loved the crap out of this record when it came out, and it has not held up well for me at all. That is Napalm Death, Harmony Corruption. They go to Morris Sound Studios. Scott Burns produces their album. It sounds muddy. People love it. I think it sounds muddy. I don't like the production on this record. I like the fact that Napalm Death started writing longer songs. The novelty of the short, like You Suffer Why, Blast. I get it. They're influenced by Japanese hardcore. The whole grind thing. Here they start writing more longer songs. They got way better after this record. There's some great songs on here. And like I said, when this came out, I loved it. I listened to the crap out of it, but has not held up, has not stood the test of time for me. This album sounds very dated. People like it. I get it. I'm not going to sit here and discredit your tastes because everybody listens to these things. They hear them differently. For me nowadays, I'll be honest. Napalm Death is a band I never revisit. I've got a million Napalm Death records. I respect the crap out of them. I think my favorite Napalm records are Smear Campaign and The Code is Red, Long Live the Code. Those two are they're really good, well-written grind, death, catchy songs. But there's just a lot of stuff in between. It's just kind of a mush to me. I don't know. This album, very dated sounding. But at the time when it came out, I was all about it, 100%. So I had to show it tonight. Darcy.
You were right, though. People do hear things differently.
They do. We can all sit in the same room, listen. Yep.
There we go.
Here we go. Here comes the conversation. Here comes the conversation.
Oh, There we go. I didn't know if you were going to show it eventually or
it was on my pile. I didn't.
Yeah. I really like this album. I know you're not the biggest fan of it, but
I know every song. I could sing along with every song on here. I loved it.
Yeah.
It is not as good as the album came before it. It sounds tired to me.
No, it's not as good as the album that came
Extreme
before
Aggression.
it. Yes, that is my favorite Creator album.
Mine too.
This one sound. I don't know if I could critique this album. It kind of has this kind of pace. Okay, it doesn't really. There's not a lot of ups and downs, but I really do enjoy this album. And my favorite track on this album is like whatever you want to call it, deep track, Material World Paranoia. I just love Millie's vocals. She's just like paranoia. You know how he does that. And When the Sun Burns Red, People of the Lie. What else?
People of the Lie is probably the catchiest chorus on
Yeah.
the got a master plan, genocide, can't understand. People of the Lie. You know, it's
Yeah,
catchy.
Twisted Urges is a little dumb, but Agents of Brutality. Yeah, I really enjoy this one. Definitely a step down. I totally agree with you, Roger.
I agree 100%. And people have lambasted me in the past for saying that this album is overrated, because it is. It's an overrated album. I loved it when it came out because I felt I had to, but
yeah.
But
you know what? And even after this, you know where they went after this with Renewal. They kind of like Renewal to me is still just. It actually gets me in a bad mood when I listen to that one. But this,
you know what? I hated that record when it came out, but I bought it again within the last 5 years, and I like it better now than I did then. A lot of years separating me from it. It's good. It's good stuff.
Well, in my latest video, I
know.
about.
I know. I wanted to throw feces at you because that album still sucks.
You need to go back.
No,
and listen to that,
no,
man.
it's good. We're good.
Endorama is fine. It is just.
They get the dude from Corner on there. It should be a return to amazing thrash, but they put out that turd of an album. Endorama.
We hear it differently, don't we, Marty?
I know. It's all good. It's all good.
There we go.
We can sit in a room and have a beer and argue about it. You know, it's all good.
Nobody gets mad. That's right.
No.
Who's
good?
Who's up? Alan? No.
Alan's up.
Alan's up.
I'll be right back.
Nope, that's all good. Let me double check here. So this one, yeah, this is 1990 still, making sure. So we talked about Queensryche a moment ago, and I've done some videos over on my channel, Let's Talk Metal, from time to time, featuring some Queensryche clone bands, because they definitely had kind of a unique sound in the 80s that inspired a lot of other bands to do something very similar to them, because A, they were fantastic, but B, they also did have, you know, a reasonable level of success, so it made sense other bands would follow them. One of the really good bands that operated in that Queensryche vibe got their debut album out in 1990 on Metal Blade. It's a band called Lethal, and the album's called Programmed. Not one of the better album covers of 1990. We've dissected this one before, and it's kind of like a hand touching a robot hand, yeah, that's about it. But Lethal were very good at that same kind of, you know, slightly classy sounding, you know, traditional US heavy metal. Very much if you were into things like Queensryche, Crimson Glory, Heir Apparent, Lethal kind of fits in that same particular, you know, subcategory, whatever you want to call it. This album just didn't get a lot of attention when it came out, and I think, well, I'd like to think one of the reasons it didn't was simply bad timing, because this band had done a really good demo several years earlier. And I feel like if they could have followed up, you know, landed the record deal, got the album out closer to the demo, that would have put it out, you know, right there around the same time as Mind Crime.
Oh, that's a good album.
And this album maybe could, you know, it
album.
might could have rode the coattails of Mind Crime pretty hard at the time. They definitely could have gotten billed or maybe paired up with them somehow. The fact that this didn't come out until, you know, a couple of years later, when Queensryche had already moved on, you know, to more commercial things like we saw, meant that, you know, maybe it missed the boat just a little bit in terms of being able to latch on to the success of Mind Crime and thus raise its own visibility. But yeah, it's a really good album, great performances,
total Queensryche clone,
strong vocals. But yeah, right there in that vein. If you like Queensryche, this is a good one to check out.
Yep.
They did some other recordings later. They had a EP somewhere in the mid 90s. I have never heard it because I have always been told that it was, you know, again, lineup scrambles and all that, and that it was basically their attempt to change into like a grunge band or something. It's one of those things that just gets universally lambasted as a horrible decision. So, but again, I've not heard it myself. I'm just saying, if you're looking to check this band out, do stick to the Programmed album. Pass on. It was called like Evil Seed or something about seed in the name of the EP. I don't think that's where you want to be at for them. So one that got overlooked in 1990, but is a really good, solid album for sure. That
looks like an album that High Roller would go after too. has it been reissued, Alan? Do you know if there's anything available or?
I'll check. That's a good question. I bet it has. I mean, it's a Metal Blade title, so it's not.
I bet you
one that was super.
Dwayne would know. I bet.
Yeah, Dwayne, if you already know that, if it's got a reissue, let us know. I'll jump over here to Discogs.
I know I got my copy on CD super cheap, but no one really gives a shit about that band.
They really don't, which is kind of a shame. But let's see. Here's Lethal. How many editions of Programmed do we have? Oh, get this.
See a lot of new people in the chat tonight. We've had a lot of new subscribers. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us and chiming in the chat instead of being a wallflower. It's cool. It's cool to see a lot of new people coming around. We really appreciate y'all. Cheers.
This one did have a pressing in 2020 in Greece on Alone Records. Don't know that one.
You don't know Alone Records? No?
Does not ring a bell.
The only other person knows about Alone Records is the Alone Record owner's mom.
Marquee Records pressed it in 2017.
Have a couple on Alone Records. So
really? Well, hell, what do I know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Cyclone Empire did it in 2014. So yeah, there's been some reissues.
Oh, Glenn, thank you so much. You're too kind, man. You didn't have to do that. Cheers, brother.
But yeah, so there are definitely recent editions of Programmed out there for anybody who'd like to give it a try. Very solid album. If by chance, if any of those reissues have the demo tracks included, get that one because the demo tracks are amazing. A couple of them got reused on the album, but a couple did not. And the demo is fantastic. It's one of the best demos from the late 80s US scene that I've ever heard.
Okay. Actually, Marty, I got 2 Hellstar reissues on Alone Records. Nosferatu and what else? A Distant Thunder. Yeah.
Does Distant Thunder have the lightning bolts or the non-lightning bolts?
Or a new cover completely, please.
Yeah, different cover, different hands. Hey, Lewis, welcome to the channel. Cheers for joining us.
That's what it's got.
No lightning bolts.
No lightning bolts.
Just some LA Nails action going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I wonder if Alone Records has some kind of deal with Metal Blade because both those Hellstars are Metal Blade albums and the Lethal's a Metal Blade. So I wonder if Alone is kind of licensing some of the old Metal Blade catalog.
Because one of the other ones I picked up was Flotsam and Jetsam Ugly Noise, and that is a Metal Blade too.
Okay. Might be something to it.
Yeah, maybe a connection there.
All right. Oh, Alan's grabbing something before I jump into my last death metal pick of the evening. There's one more, but I didn't listen to it that much, so I'm not going to show it. We'll let Alan harvest his pull, and then I'll move on to the next.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, I was just going to show for folks that maybe weren't sure what we were joking about a second ago. Yeah, here's the Hellstar that Darcy just showed. Great album. Not going to win any awards for cover art.
Those hands are like disembodied. The hands don't look right either. There's something wrong with those hands.
It also came to fix it. I'm not sure if this became first or second, and it really doesn't matter.
And that makes it worse because it makes the logo even more obscured. It's so stupid. Either choice is poor.
But yes, you could get it with the lightning hands, or you could get it with the non-lightning hands. And in either case, you just flip it over and look at the back cover and listen to some amazing U.S. power music, power metal, great stuff.
Great.
Yeah, those fingers are way too long.
There's something messed up about those hands.
You know what they say about big hands, right? Big gloves.
You know, we should do a hands album cover show one night just for fun. You know,
it'll be like 3 hours of Camelot band photos.
I bet there's a lot of fun ones we can dig up.
Saint Anger or what?
Well,
the butthole punch. Yeah.
Yep. We could do Saint Anger. That would be one that could count.
All right. Well, this is my last death metal pick for the 90s. And man, what a sick, awesome record this is. For God Your Soul, For Me Your Flesh by Austria's Pungent Stench. These guys were just filthy. And my favorite was Been Caught Buttering, but this is just sick, simplistic, grotesque death metal. Another band from Austria during this era is, of course, Disharmonic Orchestra. They did a split together, I believe, but there's just something. This is a reissue, of course, a 2 CD reissue. Why was there 2 CDs of this? There might have been a demo. Remastered and partly re-recorded 93 version, bonus tracks. Yeah, there's a bunch of bonus on here, but this was during when this came out, my buddy Scott dubbed this for me on one side, and on the other side he put a Carcass album. So this was a big deal. It's just sick, distorted, nasty, filthy, vile. I mean, yeah, this is the stuff. Twisted and gross. I love it. Pungent stench. All right, Darcy, you're back.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I have never heard that one. I've heard of the band, but I am writing this shit down because I do check them out.
Been Caught Buttering is a little bit more advanced, but they're both just grotesque, awesome.
Yeah, I think Mike has talked to me about that one before. Okay, let's show something a little less well known. I think Alan might know this one for sure. Well, Marty might too, but Malaya Rage.
Mm-hmm.
Solitary Solitude. What?
Solitary Solitude. What a dumb name for an album.
Yeah, not the greatest album cover or title, but not as good. Now I'm what's the name of their album that came before this now?
Oh, it's got the
Survive.
Indian skeleton on the front. Yeah.
What?
The Indian
Kill
skeleton.
to Survive.
Kill to Survive. We did an episode of that on the album club.
Yeah, I like that one. It's actually good. Better than this one, but this one's a decent album too. I only own 2 Malaya Rage albums, and that's probably all I need. But this is decent. I picked this one up Hammerheart reissue about 3 or 4 years ago, and actually play it quite a bit. I think these guys are from Boston area. I think they are.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Boston.
Yeah, I think even what's his name?
There's another hand cover for you.
Yeah, I think actually that the guy from Sully Erna from Godsmack was in this band at one time, but not during this period. I would say this one and the one before are probably all you would need. But yeah, I don't know. Have you heard this one, Alan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yes, Brian, I agree. The Witching is my favorite track off of that one.
Album title is the opposite of Loosely Tight.
I was wondering if Loosely Tight would come up tonight. Bonus points, consumer.
Aaron showed off Loosely Tight reissue on his latest video. I'm like, oh, he doesn't even have the original. What the hell? What the hell's going on over there?
I've already commented on that video from Metal Theologian. Yes, a lot of good albums. But yeah, Darcy, yeah, I agree. It's not as good as Kill to Survive, but The Witching, it's worth it for that track alone.
Oh, The Witching is awesome. And also, I think Deliver Me is a really cool track too. But yeah, it's worth a try. I would. It's I don't know. You wouldn't call it thrash either.
It's borderline. Yeah,
it's borderline with U.S. power metal. They're kind of right in that kind of groove.
Yep, agreed.
If you had to give them a label.
Yep. So yeah, it's another one that, like we've talked about tonight. It's not a bad album at all, but it's kind of emblematic that the thrash / power thrash scene it's pretty full by 1990. That you're getting there's a lot of bands out there getting albums. This isn't like it was an unknown deal either. This was on Epic Records. I mean, this was a major label release.
Jeremy kind of nails it with this comment. It's sort of in the metal church zone. It really is. It kind of is in the metal church zone.
Metal Church is a good band that, kind of defines that little niche where it can lean towards thrash, but it never quite gets into thrash.
U.S. power metal.
Yep.
Yeah, but the fact that bands like Malaya Rage were on Epic and Exodus is on Capitol, it really tells you, that the thrash scene, people are cashing in on that pretty big and pretty hard in 1990, and usually that's a sign that you're probably going to start heading downhill pretty soon.
Absolutely. Because 3 years later, we're all any of these bands. I mean,
mm-hmm.
after 1992, you never saw Exodus till 2004.
Yep. Testament changes styles, for some albums. Anthrax completely goes off the deep end. Megadeth gets more commercial and more commercial.
Me.
You stop that. You stop that.
Real me.
What's the other? There's another one on that one that was on the radio the other day that just drives me nuts every time they play it. It wasn't that one. Is it? I can't remember now, and I'm glad I can't.
All right. Okay. This has been avoided, and this is probably one of my favorite Joey albums. This is the time.
It's time. Yes, the last, as Darcy pointed out, 3 of the big 4 had albums this year, and we've already covered Megadeth and Slayer. So here's Anthrax's contribution.
This is a long ass record. There's 11 songs on it, but it never really felt long to me. I always really love the songs on here. It's a darker Anthrax record. After you come off of State of Euphoria, what a goofy ass. That is one of my least favorite. Well, one of my least favorite Joey records.
I love that album.
I know there's some good songs on it, but it's too silly and goofy. This is a darker Anthrax record, and I'm not gonna lie, it suits them well. A lot of talks about abuse, whatnot. It's just a very dark record. I always loved this one. I always did. It really, whenever I grab for Anthrax, it's usually this one. Other than, I will say, their latest 2 albums, Worship Music and For All Kings, man, they're both great records. I was shocked how good they are. My kid even liked them. I'm shocked. But Anthrax, they have a special place in my heart as a young thrasher. Metallica maybe took a little bit more precedence over them, but Among the Living was and Spreading the Disease were 2 humongous records for me. But Persistence of Time is one of my favorite Joey records for sure. I love this record. It's great. It's well written. It's heavy. It's dark. And the Christopher Cross Got the Time, which here's an example of leading off your album with a cover that works. It's weird. They put time at the beginning. It works. It's not Mexican radio. It's not whatever else been out there that's been a stupid misstep, but great record. I love this record. No shame in this game.
Well, I got a message for you from Mike too. He said, "Don't let Marty tell you that that's a good fucking album." He said it's bloated.
Tell that old bastard to shut up and go to bed.
So yeah, hey, and I mentioned Mark Dodson's name. He produced that Suicidal I showed you too. So, and you can tell when a band like Anthrax uses a guy like Alex Perry Ellis, who brought that really thin production sound to Persistence, is way more beefier. And beefier, darker. But it's got some great tracks. Sure, it might be a little bit long. I don't know what the whole running time is. What is it, about an hour?
It's got to be close to an hour.
Yeah.
I'll check, but it's got to be 50. It's north of 50 minutes.
I mean, In My World, what does he say? What was the talking part in My World?
You gonna put me in jail, man? You gonna put me in jail? My life has been one big hell.
Yeah. Belly of the Beast, yeah. And that cover of Got the Time, I love it. I
love it. There's like 2 over 7 minute long songs on here, which for a thrash songs, that's a long fucking song. It just is.
I think Keep It in the Family is probably my favorite track.
Great one. I mean, there is not a bad song on here. Yeah. Discharge, I mean, they end it on a banger. What a great song.
Yep.
One Man Stands. Wow.
The album tracks in at 59 minutes and 26 seconds.
And it's good. It doesn't drag for me. I'm sorry, Joe Jackson. You're right, Ryan. I'm a little tipsy on the claws tonight. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I agree with what y'all have said. Other than Fistful of Metal, It's probably my favorite. It and Fistful, I mean, they're so different. It's a little hard to compare.
It's a completely different band, really.
Yeah, but those two would be at the top of my Anthrax list. Yeah, I've got the 10-inch single for Keep It in the Family is always on the bookcase back there with the clock cutout cover, which are just kind of a cool gimmicky thing.
It's cool to see
Excellent
so many
album. So
people
once again,
like this album in the chat. It's cool because it's a good album. It really is.
There's a lot of love in the chat.
Yep. And so, yeah, once again, we see that in 1990, all is well in Thrashland. We can say it's a little bloated. You know, there's some B-list bands that are getting a lot of exposure, but all your big bands are, you know, Anthrax. Yeah, great album. Megadeth releases one of, you know, the most hailed albums of the whole decade. Slayer, you know, people are a little mixed on that one, but a lot of folks, I think, can still agree that Seasons is still a strong album overall. Same with Testament. Not a lot of people's favorite, but it's not a, you know, it's not a dud at all. Nope. Thrash is good in 1990.
Yeah, well, let's look at
go back and watch our 1992 episode and see how many good Thrash albums we're able to dredge up. It changes fast.
It's starting to change. I mean, you got Defiance Void Terra Firma came out in 1990, which is a boring ass album. The year before, Gothic Slams Another Face in the Crowd came out. There's cracks. There's too much. Power Mad. When did Power Mad come out?
There's too much. Oh, Power Mad's not. You're so mean to Power Mad.
What about Violence?
They had a good song.
Violence Oppressing the Masses. Where do you stand on that one?
I've got it in my stack. I love the shit out of it when it came out. I liked it better than the debut.
I like the debut a lot more, but that's me.
One I don't have. What I would love to show is Sodom, Better Off Dead, but I don't own it.
Don't have that one either.
All right, who was next?
You just did
Darcy.
Anthrax. So Darcy.
Okay. 88, 2 years after an absolute thrasher piece I love from this band. They came out with this, but this is what Alan maybe will call second tier thrash of 1990. Flotsam and Jetsam.
I would agree. That is second. That was bargain bin thrash. I picked up my copy of that in the bargain bin for $1 at Camelot Music.
I don't mind this album, but man, from No Place of Disgrace or to
No Place for Disgrace. Yep.
Yes. Maybe too many claws over here too. Sorry. But
no need to say sorry. I'm with you, brother.
I'm from Canada, eh? I have to say sorry.
Put your toque on. It's getting cold. It's fall, eh?
Take off, eh?
Got the toque right here.
But definitely a step down. And Alex Periellis production, super thin. But it does have some really killer tracks. But man, this definitely could use a remastering because the drum sound is really bad in some places, but I still love songs like Suffer the Masses and The Master Sleeps. But they're towards the end, the last three songs, they're really not good. But
no.
October Thorns, another good track, but this
Can we all just take in that cover for a second?
Yeah, this cover's not good.
Oof. Wow, that's not good.
No, but still a band that I listen to this day. But they're what they're putting out now is really good. Their past three albums have been really awesome. So, but yeah, second tier thrash for sure.
Agreed.
Yep. Yeah. Not a terrible album. It has its moments, but yeah, it's not a staple of the genre either. But
you know what, Alan, though, too, if you said we did, if we went back and we did 1995, we did that. I did 95 with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And bands like Flots changed big time. So
yep.
That's what you saw is all these bands with these cryptic writings or these, stuff like that. And Flotsam and Jetsam was one of them that changed big time too.
Yeah. I mean, while this album, while it's not great, it still kind of mostly feels like a Flotsam album. Whereas you get to the next one, Quattro. I bought Quattro for $1.99 out of the used bin, and I don't think I've ever wanted my $2 back so bad.
I just can't believe people are like showing Flotsam and Jetsam. The VC. There's handful of dudes that are showing Blossom and Jessam records and say how good they are. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. I don't even want to try because I don't believe it. I don't know. Anyway, Alan, you're up. Good
All
pick,
right.
Darcy. Yeah. I'm shocked to see it, but
I would not have thought about that one from 1990. All right. Tim brought this one up very early in the chat this evening, so it's been in the stack. It's time to finally get around to it. U.S. traditional metal, long time Riot has an album in 1990 called "The Privilege of Power." Another one that the cover art's not winning any awards, but it kind of ties. There's a little bit of a weird theme to the album. This is their follow-up to Thundersteel. First off, so this is Thundersteel era Riot.
Oh, so good.
They only
Thundersteel
have
is so
two.
good.
Thundersteel's amazing. This album is, same lineup. It follows in the footsteps of Thundersteel pretty well. This album has some weird gimmicky stuff going on that maybe holds it back a little bit. Personally, I love it because it's the only other album they did in that vein, at least until you get into more recent years with the Riot Mark V era and stuff. Because after this one, again, big lineup shuffle. They bring in Mike DeMeo as the new vocalist. And I love the stuff they do in the 90s and the 2000s. But it goes more into the hard rock metal direction, whereas this is still balls to the wall power speed metal stuff, which not a lot of US bands did. The gig with this one though is the story goes that the producer was kind of obsessed with Operation Mindcrime, which we've talked about. He felt like that was going to be sort of the direction of heavy metal moving forward. How wrong he was. But so he ended up going back in and splicing in between the songs all of these snippets from radio interviews and TV documentaries, trying to create some kind of thematic thing going through the album. So there'd be, I know one of them, there's a clip of people talking dispassionately about how to assemble a hydrogen bomb, and then there'd be clips from news reels and strange disappearance stories and all this stuff. It's not bad. It's just kind of it feels kind of weird because it doesn't necessarily tie into the music well at all.
Right.
Yeah. The band supposedly was not consulted about it. They didn't even know it had been put on the album until they heard the album upon release. That is what they claim. The songs, it's a very, whereas Thundersteel is, feels very focused. I mean, all the songs there are these big, epic, blazing power metal anthems. This album has some of those. It also has songs that are going off in very different directions, though. Let's take a quick browse here. Things like, On Your Knees, the opener is, great power speed metal, but it's also got some horns and stuff in it. So they, famously brought in, was it Tower of Power guys or something to play in the studio or something? Really weird. Then you have Metal Soldiers is a little more kind of mid-paced anthemic. Runaway is actually more of a poppy, catchy song. It works good. They do it amazingly well, but it's very different. Killer has almost this kind of jazzy thing to it. Someone does guest vocals on that. I forget who.
James Murphy.
No,
it's not Murphy. It's it's something it's not Graham Bonnet, but
somebody like that.
It's someone like Glenn Hughes, someone like that.
I don't even know if he's a metal guy.
I someone in the chat maybe can help me out. But then you get Dance of Death and Storming the Gates of Hell, and these are just these could have been on Thundersteel, and they're probably faster and more aggressive than anything on Thundersteel. On side 2, you get Marianne, as the name implies. It's kind of a ballad, but it's really good. It works quite well. It's very catchy. You have Black Leather and Glittering Steel. The title pretty much tells you everything you need to know. This song could have been on Painkiller. It's that style.
That is a heavy song.
That's a heavy, fast fucking song. So stylistically, the album's a little scattered. But I like all of it. I think everything on here works quite well. Even the really kind of weird tracks. It just fits for me. It's never gets as much attention, I think, but because the cover's weird and it's got these weird sound clips in it, and the songs are scattered. So I understand why people don't elevate it up there with Thundersteel, but it's another great entry in the Riot catalog, but it just kind of collapsed. The lineup was already a little shaky. There were lots of allegations about band members not getting paid around this time. I think it's Don Van Stavern has said he and at least one other guy, the only reason they got any money from this album was they actually had luckily like joined the New York Musicians Union. And as such, they went to the union, and the union on their behalf made sure they got cut a paycheck for the hours that they were in the studio. He's like, if it wasn't for our union membership at the time, we would have gotten absolutely nothing.
Wow.
So yeah, so there's shit was messed up. The vocalist, was kind of done. He was studying to be like a classically trained vocalist. This was kind of a side thing for fun. He was he had done his thing. He was moving on. So yeah, Riot again. It ends another era in Riot's catalog, and a couple of years later they would reboot in a different direction. But it's a fun album, and if you like Thundersteel, it's worth giving it a chance.
If you could get a cleaned up version with all that new shit taken out of it, because that did not do that album any favor. It made it like, okay, why are all these damn news clips coming? It kind of follows the cover of the album. It's like clicking a channel.
Exactly.
Okay, here's this snippet. Okay, we're going to talk about, here's this song. And then there's another. Yeah, so many of that news clips just so unnecessary.
Yeah, the cover art is really the only thing that does connect with all the news clips and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess, the band photo on the back is meant to kind of, you get the sense that, yes, they're supposed to be laying around all kind of addicted and staring at something on the TV.
Yeah. Mesmerized. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, none of it really fits with the songs at all. So it obviously didn't really work out as a concept.
All right. Well, if anybody in the chat, I told you to place your bets on who's going to pull this record. If anybody picked me, you were correct. Guar, Scumdogs of the Universe.
There you go.
I'm not going to lie. I like this record a lot. I always did when it came out. I was watching back in the day, there was a show on TV called Night Flight, and I saw an expose on Guar during the Night Flight era that talked about their Hello album. It was like around that time. They were kind of like a artsy punk band. I love Hello. Hello is it's a punk record, essentially. It's really strange. This is a lot more metal. Scumdogs of the Universe. In fact, you've got Elaine Jorgensen and Paul Barker. They produced the song I Saw Yig. Horror of Yig is the name of the song. It was produced by Jorgensen and Paul Barker. So gets the Ministry treatment a little bit here, which was, Mine's a Terrible Thing to Taste was a big deal around 1989. But this record really does rip. There's some great songs on here. The Salamanizer, Maggots, Sick of You was kind of the hit single.
Slaughterama's a lot of fun.
Slaughterama's great. Sexecutioner, Black and Huge. That was a remake off their first album. Hello. I love this record. It's fun. It's probably my second favorite Guar record. They put out some great stuff after. Awesome live band, of course. I've often talked about on here Slyminster Hyman, this gal right here. They played the first ever New England Metal and Hardcore Festival, and I was covering it for Metal Maniacs. And I was walking up the stairs of the Palladium, and she just came out of the girls' bathroom, was going up the stairs right in front of me. So I was like 2 steps down and about 2 feet away from her beautiful thong, her beautiful butt. It was a nice butt. Not going to lie. I stared at it the whole way up the stairs. It was right in front of my face. Cheers, Slyminster Hyman, for having an amazing butt. Anyway, great band. I love that record. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Darcy.
fun one.
It's a fun one. Good fun band.
Well, we might as well show this. Bruce Dickinson, Tattooed Millionaire. I'm not going to say that this is definitely a huge departure.
It's not a great record.
No,
it's okay.
No,
it's not great.
I've done a Bruce ranking before, and this one doesn't really. It's not near the top. He doesn't have tons of shit out, but if this is what he was waiting to do to leave Iron Maiden, actually, you know what? He did this one while he was in Iron Maiden, because he still did Fear of the Dark after.
True. Yeah.
But I mean, it's more of just a hard rock album. It's not a metal album, but I still, what was this? The other two, Accident of Birth and Tyranny of Souls is good too, but I owned this one on cassette when it first came out, got rid of it, and then I rebought it because I don't know, I'm kind of still an Iron Maiden fanatic, and I know Bruce is obviously a big part of that. So I thought, you know what, I'm still going to buy this, but I don't play it much, but I thought I'd show it anyways. If anybody out there likes it, let us know.
Sorry, I'm laughing at the comments. People are saying it must have been a good ass if you remembered all these years later. I said, yeah, it was a fine ass. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you got to remember those things. You still use those. That's right
still,
up here.
Yeah.
That gets used quite a bit, I bet.
My ass radar is still functioning quite properly. Anyway.
Who's next, Alan?
Alan.
Yep, getting towards the bottom of the stack here.
I got two left, and then Mel won't hate me too much.
Yep, but this one comes up from time to time on the show, but it technically is a 1990 issue. I always think of it as later because it got reissued on a big label in 1992, and so that's when most people became aware of it. But it was actually originally pressed on a smaller label in 1990, and that would be Winters Into Darkness.
Good album.
Very cool album, relatively unique kind of thing, even to this day. It's got this, obviously, very bottom heavy, doomy kind of sound, but also this kind of crusty element to it as well. Eric Bowers, described it, as, how does he put it, Marty? Because he's got the perfect description of it. It's like just like a really slowed down crust punk album. Which it kind of works on it. Yeah, it kind of works when I would never have thought of that. But Eric,
it's crust doom for sure.
It really does fit. Very cool and unique kind of vibe to it. It's one of those things that got no attention at the time it came out. It sat there. Every single Nuclear Blast mail order catalog had it. Just CD copies for on the $5 sale page. It's like buy any of these for $5. Please get them off our shelves.
It's really not. It's like a niche of a niche of a niche. It's like one of those records that it rules, but there's only a small fraction of people that are like jonesing for it.
Yeah, I think over the time folks have become aware of it, and it's definitely. I think now it's recognized as a really strong album. At the time, it just had no exposure. Again, doom was not such a thing, and even if you wanted to think of this as getting into like death doom territory, that was rare back then. Winter wasn't the first band doing that, but you didn't have a lot of bands operating in that vein yet. You were still just kind of getting the Peaceful Threes sound up and running and starting to get some exposure soon, but so Winter was one of those that I'm sure at the time a lot of people would listen to this and just kind of scratch their head and be like, I don't know what the fuck to make of this. But very cool album. I own multiple copies of it, some of which I may or may not have ever played.
I used to have an OG t-shirt of that. It was a gray t-shirt with that design on it.
Oh, nice. I've seen that t-shirt.
I ended up giving it to Stephen O'Malley from Sun.
Oh, okay, cool. I remember seeing that gray t-shirt. It may have just been in the mail order catalogs as well.
And that's where I got it from.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, Into Darkness, not a 92 for Nuclear Blast to put out, but 1990 on, it's called something like Future Shock. Yeah, on the Future Shock label.
Yep.
There we are. All right, Marty, what you got next?
Okay. Well, my second to last poll for the night. The first time I heard the song Kill Time, it gave me goosebumps. This is a great German thrash metal album. Paradox or Killer. Their first album was a little more Metallica inspired. This one's a little more German thrash inspired. It's a great record. I had the tape, the OG tape of it. I got in a Camelot cutout bin for $1. put it in on my truck on the way home, and I just couldn't believe how killer it was, and how did I miss it. But this album is great, a great thrash record from Germany. This is a reissue on That's Metal, Maximum Metal. I don't know. Copyright Roadrunner Records International. I don't know. Great record. It's a great record. German thrash. Yep. Darcy had it pulled too. I'm going to pull it up again. Show me your copy. Is that a reissue?
Yeah, Diabolic Might. But Marty, I thought this thing came out in 1989.
Are you sure? I could be wrong.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I
could be wrong. Paradox, Germany. I could be wrong.
We're gonna let it slide anyways, because
you're right. 1989. Fuck me. Cheers, everybody. Listen to this record. It's good.
Sorry, Marty, but it is a great album regardless, and people need to hear it.
I'm glad you showed it. That corrected me. Let's go with this one then. Violence, Oppressing the Masses. I really like the debut. Sean Killian's vocals are a lot to take. It's a love or hate type of thing. I liked it. I like it a lot more on this song. Prophet, great opener. Officer Nice. World in a World. What a great song. What a great techie thrash song. Bury a Thrash for sure. This is the last really, truly great Violence. I have not heard their reunion stuff. I know they've got back together. I know Phil Demmel is already out of the band again. I knew that wasn't going to last, but
the reunion stuff is shit.
Is it shit? Okay. Well, I'll believe you. I know the albums that came, the thing that came out after this, Torture Tactics. You're right, everybody. I'm sorry I pulled heresy. I don't know why. I looked it up. I thought it was 90. My bad. It's all nebulous, a nebulous mush at that point. But yeah, Oppressing the Masses. This is a great techie thrash Bay Area album for sure. I listened to the crap out of this when it came out. I love this record. And I remember World in a World being the video on Headbangers Ball.
If you see another used copy of that, keep me in mind, because
this was a cutout. I got this cheap.
I think that one, I heard that it was tied up in legal bullshit, that it may not get a reissue. So,
really?
I know Metal Blade reissued Eternal Nightmare, but I don't know if they have the rights to that one. But yeah, I'd love to get. I don't care if it's cut out or whatever. I want to get a copy of that.
Yeah, Rob Flynn was in Violence.
Yeah, he was on even that album.
Yeah, he was on this album. He left after that, I believe. I don't know if he was on Torture Tactics or not. He might have been.
Yeah, I think Demmel's the only real, Bobby Gustafson, he left a long time ago. He left over a year ago.
Yep.
He was actually in Violence too. And then their drummer left, Strickland left. I don't think there's much left.
Nope. I found that CD at Goodwill for $1. Every time I go to Goodwill, I found a Metallica CD there once. And I found actually a Violence single off the first album from the radio station in there. The rest of it's garbage. I don't know how the hell people find good records at Mental Vortex was not 1990. Mental Vortex, hold on. Coroner. Mental Vortex is, where is it? Mental Vortex is 1991.
Yeah.
Because it was in my pile for a second. Anyway, who's next? Darcy. I'm shot. I'm done through my pile.
Okay, we'll call this my last one then.
That's a good record. It's a good record.
So yeah, this is the only one with the guy from Poltergeist on
Poltergeist.
Yep. Which I don't have that. I don't have any of the. What is it?
I've got one. Let me grab one. Hold on.
I don't even know that Poltergeist album, but this is not a bad record. I enjoy it. It's not, as good as what the hell's the one that came before it, Alan? Oh shit!
Oh, with the
great cover,
Release from Agony.
Yes, and I do really
Poltergeist Behind My Mask.
That is a cool cover too.
Yeah,
but yeah, this is just kind of a one-off for Destruction. just kind of a one-off, different one vocalist. But I mean, Mike and Harry are still in the band. I mean, Mike was the kind of the driving force. Great guitar player. I wish he was still in the band, but yeah, I don't mind this. I am late to the destruction party, but I've been trying to pick up whatever I can. And even their last shit, man, even since Under Attack, their albums have been great. I really enjoy them.
Oh my God. Someone said American. Okay. Andy, man, I listened to the crap out of that record when it came out. I loved Sacred Reich up to that point. After that record, they lost me. But American Way is a good record. I don't like the funk shit on it, but
yeah, I got that. Cheer. There you go.
That's a great record. I like the production of it. It's really sharp and heavy. It's good. It's a good, well-produced record.
And it's still got the goofy shit on here, like 31 flavors.
Yeah. So much metal for you to choose. Don't just be a metal dude. Stupid.
We were talking about second tier thrash recently, I believe.
Yeah. I mean,
not my band.
My favorite is Ignorance. That's a great record. I love that record. All right.
One more third tier.
That's a good record too.
But it's third tier though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Alan, your last for the evening.
Your last one. Wish I could say we were going out on a high note, but we're going out on an old favorite that didn't age well. Speaking of third tier thrash, Metal Blade once upon a time had a band on their label called Slaughterhouse. It was a Jersey band. This was their debut album for Metal Blade. It came out in 1990. Not much going on the cover there. You've got a couple of, I guess, tools from a slaughterhouse and some little picture framed up here in the corner.
Is that the band that had their album with their heads all decapitated in the snow?
That's the second album, Face Reality. Yep. Which is slightly more interesting as a cover. Anyway, yeah, let's see. I think I've got it here too. Yeah, this is the one this one came out in 91.
Yep.
Face Reality, which was very much in the same vein. This is another band that was really maybe kind of in that Malaya Rage camp where they're leaning towards thrash a lot, but not quite there. They're keeping one foot, in that metal church camp instead. This is no metal church, and this is not even a Malaya Rage. The deal here was somehow or another, I stumbled into that first Slaughterhouse album at a flea market. People would, have these, big trays of, again, the bargain bin cassette tapes, that they had just, bought in bulk somewhere. And, flipping through them, somebody had this sitting there for $5. And I'm like, I don't know what this band is, but it's on Metal Blade. It's clearly heavy metal of some type. And for $5, I'm at a flea market. I'm going to give it a chance. Picked it up, and it hit the right buttons, for a dumb teenage kid out in the sticks. You've got songs like, FTW, fuck the world, and stuff. It's very simple, just kind of, simple, heavy, riffs and grooves. But, for whatever reason, it just, it kind of tickled me. You had the, like a dumb chanty, USA song. There's, what else? Kick them when they're down. Some of them, Black Sheep and stuff. I probably played that cassette tape 100 times before I even graduated from high school. I have probably not played it 3 times since I graduated high school. It just did not age well. The second album, I picked it up really cheap when it came out. And at that point, I could tell, like, yeah, okay, this doesn't really work. And then going back and playing the first one, like, maybe this one didn't work so good either. It's not horrible, but this was exactly what we've been talking about. For every Rust in Peace that came out in 1990 and every Persistence of Time, you got a whole lot of, slaughterhouses and defiances and stuff that are kind of clogging things up too. You're getting to that saturation point. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I'll probably do another video on my channel soon about. You get to just a certain point, whether it's a band or a genre or whatever, and even if you like it overall, I think for a lot of people, you start feeling like, okay, I think we've had enough of that. I just don't need more of that particular thing, at least not for the time being. And if Metal Blade is signing and releasing Slaughterhouse, you're at that saturation point. You're really doing it. Defy all you want, Simon. Maybe the record sounds better when you buy the Australian copy that has to spin backwards to play the music correctly, because the Northern Hemisphere copy sounds like
it's just so average, tired thrash at that point.
Yeah. It's fifth tier, that one.
Yeah, it is thrash metal, paint by numbers. My first I can read book kind of thing. Slaughterhouse is not much better, if I'm being honest. I will always have a little bit of nostalgia for this one though, because yes, I played this so much there through high school. I thought this was it was a deep find. Nobody else in high school knew who's that, what's that, how is it? It was like, oh, it's so fucking cool. And I bet I dubbed this for I don't know 5 or 6 different people, which is pretty much everyone that would have listened to heavy music in my high school. Yeah, it was a thing. It was a discovery. It was an early kind of deep dive for me, where this wasn't just a Metallica or a Motley Crue or a Rat album. It's just like, don't know, got a blind by it, and it worked out gorgeously, and I loved it to death for a while. So yes, we'll end our discussion tonight with that was the kind of stuff still getting released in 1990. The window for this kind of band was closing really fast. We didn't know it at the time, but in going back to where we started at the beginning of the evening, within a year, metal is on notice. Thrash metal is on notice because death metal is becoming much, much more of a force. Hair metal is being put up against the wall by grunge. Tastes are changing very, very quickly. With just 1 year later, big change in 91. Darcy, maybe we will have to bring you back on in the near future and do 1991, because we have not picked that one apart yet, I don't think.
No, we haven't picked that one apart. But it's always fun to hang out with you guys. And you have the greatest comment section bunch, I'll tell you. You got a lot of what I call the usual suspects. You have some really cool people. So
we do, and it's growing. There's a lot of names in the chat tonight I don't recognize. And cheers to all you folks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
100, and it does make a big difference having a fun chat, having people in the chat that are knowledgeable, that are contributing, that are interacting nicely with each other. We don't have to sit here and police it, every 3 minutes to get rid of trolls or stuff like that. Thank you so much to everybody for hanging out and being cool.
We realize that day is coming. We get to a point where
it's going to happen. It's
going to happen eventually, but we're going to try to keep you guys involved in the chat. Hey man, cheers.
Yeah.
We got to get you guys back on again, and you got to get your face in front of the camera this time. Don't be scared. We don't bite.
That's who you are. Okay. I've been reading your comments tonight. It's just like, yeah, this person knows what they're talking about. Okay, there you are.
Well, you know what? For every single one snapperhead that you encounter in the comment section, there's 1,000 good people, and they can those type people can just fuck off. We're just having some fun.
Yep. And they come on once in a while. They hit once in a while. I've had to ban it 3 people the entire time we've been doing this. Yeah. It's no big deal. It's
pretty
fine.
Good track record. You guys got a great channel.
Thanks, man.
We
really appreciate everybody coming on, and not only the people in the chat, but the guests. And we're gonna keep doing this every Friday, unless something comes up that me and Alan can't be here.
By the way, next Friday I can't be here.
I'll be here next Friday, everybody. Alan will not be. I'll be covering his ass. And then the weekend after that, I won't be here. He'll be here. I'll be out in the woods somewhere getting hammered.
Yep, I gotta work on a lineup. We'll see if I can get some guests on for 2 weeks from now. So
you'll figure it out. I'm sure it'll be fine. But
Marty and I will reunite in a couple of weeks. Actually, when we come back on, then I think we've got Dan from the Coliseum will be our
Dan from the Coliseum. I know Scott Waters wants to come on. Jimmy's in the chat. We're gonna get Jimmy on again for sure. People loved it when he's on. Brendan Von Doom from Aussie Metalhead Show. Everybody go check out his channel. Maybe we'll get Brendan Von Doom on one of these nights too. Great dude. And people have been asking for Ryan. in the chat too. Ryan Muldoon. That's why I had you get a hold of me, Ryan, because people have been asking for you. They've been clamoring in the streets for you on a show one of these nights. So
Ryan is super.
I know it's coming, Larry. I know it's coming.
it's coming. It's growing too. It's been a lot this last month has been a lot of new subscribers. So cheers. And please go check out Darcy 6 Strings 9 Lives. Links in the description. I think he might have more subscribers than us at this point. He's crushing it.
He does.
He's crushing it. Yeah, he should for sure.
His videos are always fun and very awesome.
Yep. But I saw your email, Ryan. I didn't get back. I'm not being rude. I've just been busy, but I've got your contact now. When we need you, we'll put out the bat signal, the Ryan signal. But
yeah, Ryan always has some awesome comments. Very knowledgeable.
Yep, knowledgeable dude. He's been in bands. He did a zine back in the day. We'll get him on start thinking about a topic, brother. But anyway, everybody, does anybody have anything to add before we cut this?
No, we got to get Alan to bed. He is.
Yeah, I'm already in the doghouse. I was told 12 o'clock deadline by the missus, but
hopefully she already fell asleep and I can sneak in.
Tell her it was not my fault. You had to tell those long stories. It wasn't my fault.
It was all I'm not going to throw Darcy under the bus. We want him to come back. He's too nice to throw under the bus.
Yeah. We love your long stories anyways, Alan.
Glad to appreciate it. It's always fun to hang out. But everybody have a great weekend.
Yep.
And yes, Marty will see you next Friday night. And I'll see you in about 2 weeks, hopefully. And until then, keep an eye out for other cool content on Heavy Metallurgy.
We will see you Wednesday night. Wait. Let's do quick show notes. Monday, Matt from the Dark Path, he threw in a review for the new Horrendous, so that'll be up on Monday. And Wednesday, the album club is doing. I can't remember what the album is.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
The Wednesday. Jimmy, I'm going to be sending you a link. I want to say hello. So don't hang up. Anyway, cheers everybody. We'll be here next week. We'll see you. Cheers, everyone.
Later.